quite the talent he is. Proper chatterbox yada. If you're keen, it'll be brilliant. Today, we're going to keep it simple. I'll bark out a basic command and you watch. Keen to know? He'll set your tail wagging. Does mine, hence why I'm backing him. Right then, Wookie here. Do take a seat, won't you? Give us your full attention while we listen to my pal, Yada.
Well, this program's not on the basics. Our earlier program was, and our next one on Monday will be. But it's always good to hear from the Wook. I am particularly delighted to be, after all this time, to be backed by the Wook. You have no idea what a good endorsement that happens to be, even if he is to call me a chatterbox, which I guess is fair game under the circumstances. What do you all think about that? We have for his first appearance on our program, that's Mike Beate, the great fact checker of all the Yada Yahowah series. It is indeed a great pleasure to have you on this program. We've talked about it for a long time, Mike. And I have just to begin by saying I'm in your debt. You have been such a godsend to me, and as you know, I write very quickly. Most of the books that I write, I don't even have the opportunity to read through from beginning to end. And I'm very dependent on editing and particularly on fact checking to make certain that we have the details correct. And you've done that you've done it probably for 10 to 15 years.
I officially started, I think, in 2019, but I was doing it before. I would send you emails if I found something interesting.
Yes, and I think we first met all the way back in 2008. So when I say we've been doing this for a long time, we've been corresponding for a long time. And you had it took me just a bit to warm up to the process because, as you probably know, your style is very abrupt, which is no, that's wrong.
Yeah, it is.
You're saying,
well, I'm an engineer, so that's why.
Yeah, so that's why. And you're going, okay. And then when you understand the where you're coming from, then you warm right up to it and say, boy, it's so much better just to cut to the chase. That was wrong from this point of view, and we need to deal with it. And if it's misleading, let's get it corrected. So it's been such a benefit. And so many have benefited, not even knowing who you were, although I've mentioned your name many, many times. So thank you.
All right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
JB, life good?
I can't complain.
Good. And there you are, Dr. Jeff. You're at home today, so you're not going to run off to have to treat somebody. And I understand that the young lady we were concerned about that had meningitis, that she woke up and she's doing okay.
Yes, she is.
She came out of her coma. And so the doctors found the right antibiotic treatment?
It was the right combination of antibiotics and steroids and timing. And the credit goes to the emergency room doctor who was up in Sholo in the corner of Arizona that had her flown to us by helicopter and got the more advanced care.
Wow. So somebody that realized this is beyond what I can deal with, and this young lady deserves the opportunity to live, and brought her in. You're also doing old school doctoring, house calls with my wife, who is suffering from the worst form of toe rage I've seen in a long time. She was trying to save Wookie from a German Shepherd and did a crash and burn in the street here at the end of our driveway, and has badly torn up hands, a knee, and a toe that has seen better days. It has everything but skin left on it.
Yeah. We got to get Leia feeling good and looking right. And
yeah. She's feeling a little under the weather. The pain of all of that has worn her considerably. It's I guess we have lots of pain receptors in our feet so that we can stay up and we know what we're doing. But it has been really tough this past 5 days on her as she's trying to hobble around and get around with a really. I mean, it was a pretty gruesome injury.
With all due respect to the HIPAA laws, it's a very bad laceration, and it's macerated, and it has the appearance of almost like a second-degree burn. So,
the good news is that I did see it today. So did several of us that had seen it in its worst days, and it's now pink rather than bright red, and was not oozing to the same extent. So, I think we have seen tremendous progress over the last few days, but we won't talk about the gruesome nature of that accident. How you doing, my friend Captain Kirk?
I'm doing all right. I have a great advantage. I have Sylvia as my nurse and Jeff is my on-call doctor.
So, so you're in good shape. Now, you were, did you go for a test today, or what was the your day for?
Monday I went for a test, a lot of good numbers, all that sort of thing. It's been 3 terrible days, but it does this, no matter what they tell you. But I'm going to live, apparently.
So it's been a tough recovery from the test, but the test was positive?
Oh, no, that was just a blood test, and the doctor evaluated the PSA. Okay. So everything is good, but you still have up and downs. I tell you, I'd be glad to get through this.
Yeah, when you get your strength back.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, still sore?
Yeah, I'm on an ice pack right now.
Oh, you are? Oh, my. So I guess we don't have to tell people what area is hurting.
No, that's my leg. That's my leg, and the nerves go down your leg and just like sciatica.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So, Will, what's going on, man?
Hey, how about that video? The intro you guys just did. That was fantastic.
That was John Voight. I don't know how many of you know John Voight. He's Kevin, of course, knows him very well because he's works with him regularly. In fact, it was Kevin that introduced him to me. He has been part of Leia's branding team, I guess, for quite some time. He is the one that did the first Wookiee introduction of the vlog on the blog. And he's the one who just crafted the logo for the Yahowah.com site to give it
the war logo.
Of a bite and very much sword looking. I think he did a really good job with that.
Yeah.
And I gave him a script for the introduction of the basics. He rewrote the script a lot and made it very funny. And but it's funny with a message because there's just so much graphic detail in it. You could watch that thing and you could pick out 100 little clues that he has presented along the way, and the whole thing is just hilarious. And I like the fact that it's self-deprecating. You know, it's the Wookiee is making fun of me is what he's doing, and I think that's a fine way to go. It's get a laugh, you know. It's really well done.
John is interesting. You know, he's a guy that I talk to, Yada, probably several times a week. Matter of fact, we recruited him to work on the timeline, the video aspect of the timeline. We're trying to make it more of a collaboration than just, you know, a couple of people working on it. But boy, he's good. I mean, he really very tasteful, and he's helped Jake and I sort through a number of things. And I'm glad we have him on that project because he's definitely an upgrade for us.
He's actually an artist.
He is.
Yeah, he's actually a graphic artist. I mean, by profession, he's really talented at it, and he has skills way beyond what we had thought, and just delightful to work with.
Yeah, no, John was great.
I was able to sneak in and get him to do a couple of projects for me while Leia was down with her bum toe. I know I might lose him again, and she might go back to you guys.
Right while the iron is hot.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed working with him. I hope we can continue to do projects. It is nice to see the whole team come together and work and create things of that kind of interest.
Yeah, that's great.
Kevin, you have a song that I guess we've had in the hopper for a while that you want to introduce, and it's on the theme of, I guess you're over here, even though you're over there on my screen. So I'll look at you by looking at the empty chair over here. It's about a shepherdess, and the shepherdess fits into our narrative for two reasons. One is that Ruth, which is the long story, and we may talk about it a little bit after the song, but Ruth is not only the means that Yahowah used to introduce me to Leah, and it's quite a story, and Ruth's name means that she was a shepherdess, but also the whole story of the Amah and the productive mother who plays such a role in Dowd's life and in the life of the covenant family, and with Yahowah viewing his covenant children as sheep, the whole shepherdess concept also comes alive from that point as well.
Absolutely. I could have asked for a better intro. I got nothing to add to that. That was spectacular. Let's play it.
That wasn't my intent, but please augment.
You hit Ruth, you hit Amah. I mean, that's what this video is about for sure. And we've been sitting on it for a while, but I'm really excited to get this out so people can see it. It's great music that goes along with it. Good, awesome visuals.
What people may not know too is that when Leah creates a song, she'll write the lyrics of the song. She'll coordinate the vocals in the song, the instrumentation, and that sort of thing. And quite often she'll do much of the visuals behind it. And sometimes it's the team that does the visuals behind it. But even in something like the Wookiee introduction here, there's some form of magic. They haven't quite explained it, but they just say it's out for to Kevin doing transitions and this sort of thing. And until it comes back from Kevin, it's not usable. So you're the one that makes it all happen and look so seamless and professional when it's all done.
It's literally nothing, but it's just one of those little finishing touches that I'm one of the few people that has the program that has a big bulk of those transitions, and so that's why it comes to me, because I have the most trannies, so they let me finish.
So this is between when you're going from one scene to another, the scene swipe, rather than just being a blink from one to the other. It might be a swipe, a jump, a left to right, up, down, fade in, out, that sort of thing.
All that, yeah, exactly. I think
Leia calls it the trannies.
The trannies. Yes. So you're the tranny guy.
I do. I have the most trannies, so they let me take care of that.
Excellent. So let's play this song. It's called The Shepherdess, correct?
Shepherdess of Days. Yep. Here we go.
A seasoned hand with blue veins wraps around the staff of her days. She's walked the path of joy and pain, learned Yahowah's way, not man's charade. No longer lifting millstones with her hands, she guides their steps through roughened land. With Dowd's lamp at her feet, she walks ahead, a daughter of Zion by Yahowah led. Through every trial, through every tear, his covenant promise holds her near. The rod and staff, they soothe her fear. She hears his voice within her ear. Shepherdess of days, yeah, shepherdess of days, guarding younger souls along the narrow way. Not in faith or fear, but in knowing him by name. Yahowah's truth burning like a flame. Shepherdess of days, walking is the way, calling out, come home, leave religion's haze. In the Mikuray's light where the family stays, she takes her stand, shepherdess of days. Her delicate hand hands like maps of care, each line a story Yah has shared. From Pesach Shtor to Matzah's bread, from Bikurim life to Shabuwah spread. She counts the days till Yah's return, where Dowd will reign and nations learn. She calls out in Yahowah's true name, strips off the masks of man-made shame. Not church, no mosque, not rabbi's rule, but Torah's voice, the only school. In Yehuda's song sung in God's refrains, Yisrael will delight like a cat. She leads them out of Babel's chain. Shepherdess of days, Yahweh, shepherdess of days, guarding younger souls along the narrow way. Not in faith or fear, but in knowing Him by name. Yahowah's light burning like a flame. Shepherdess of days, walking in His Torah ways, calling out, come home, leave religion's haze, and make grace plain where the family stays. She stands, His shepherdess of In the voice of the moonlit breeze, she hears Yahowah through the tree. My daughter, Kara, invite them home out of Mitzrayim. Take my hand, we'll walk these days. I'll wipe away inherited fears. The covenant stands, it never decays. Beloved daughter of Zion. Sing unto Yahowah, desolate woman, she who has never panted in labor, she who has no child of her own. Sing clearly and joyfully, for you will become a mother. In family tents beneath the stars, she points and speaks of scars of how the Lamb opened the door, that Yahweh's children live forevermore. She trades the song for open sky, the scripted promise for Yah's reply. In every step, her staff and song call wandering souls where they belong. Shepherdess of days, Yah, shepherdess of days, guarding younger souls along the narrow way. Not in faith or fear, but in knowing Him by name. Yahowah's Amah burning like a flame. Shepherdess of days, walking in His Torah ways, calling out, come home, leave religion's haze. In Sukkah's embrace, where His family stays, she rests, His shepherdess of days. Shepherdess of days. Yahweh, shepherdess of
How did we manage to keep that unplayed for 2 to 3 weeks?
Hey, everybody loves a good power ballad, man. You know, I mean,
Yeah. No, for sure.
That is a power ballad. Mike, you're the newbie here. The theme of that song conveys a insight that is something that if you had mentioned to me 3 months ago, I would have said, nah, come on, can't be. But the theme of that song is the Shepherdess of Days has been here for a very long number of days, and that she has stood beside Dowd, not once but twice, and that she will stand beside Dowd again, and that God managed to keep his people, his plan, and the pace that he wanted it to play out, working in coordination with his testimony by inserting people, souls, that he knew and could trust along the way. And it's as plain as the nose on our faces that this is what he has done. And yet I'm sure it's difficult to process, even when we recognize that it's obvious with Elia. We're told he was taken. We're told he's going to return. It's obvious with Dowd. We're told he's returning as king, as Elion, as the influence of Almighty God in our presence. And we know he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Mekudim. That's 3, and I think there's 6. So why would God be limited to those 2? Why would he have taken Enoch if he wasn't going to deploy him, particularly when his name means he's going to be deployed? What was your reaction when you first heard that? Because I know when I first encountered it through the 31st Mashal, it was a gut punch to me. And I remember I went a full day before I could process it because of my understanding of time, and that no one can go back in time. I would destroy the whole fabric of the universe. So God had to have a way of being able to do this without ever going back in time. And when I finally figured it out, I was having lunch with Leah on the beach, and I said, "Oh my God, can't wait to get back to the office. I finally figured this out, how this works."
Well, you
what was your reaction to it?
The ultimate chess move of Yahowah. He created man with all this free will, and a lot really could go wrong, and that's how he maintains control. So it's almost like Yahowah and like 6 or 10 of his best people take on the world.
Yeah, they do.
Versus that, and that's all he has are those people, and he's able to manage it all with reinserting that whole process.
And some of those people are great when they're great, and they're really not when they're not, and they have to have support. Yeah. And God doesn't let them hang. He likes these people that can be a little rough and trip and fall, so long as he can supply them with the support they need to get back up. You look at Moshe. Moshe did a complete crash and burn. So did Dowd multiple times. And so he needs to have somebody that he can send in to lift them back up and help them with their lives. Yeah. I just thought it was the ultimate way for God to do as he wants, which is to communicate to us through people, allow us to have free will, not overly impose himself, and yet make certain that his people and his plan are supported. And it's been so difficult for God to find souls he could trust. And trust, we found out, is a lot more than just being observant. It's more than just thinking it through. It's more than responding. It's seeing it through. Got to have somebody that's going to get the job done and get it all the way to the finish line, that God can say, I can rely on that person. I've used them before. They did what needed to be done. What was your thought when you first heard that, Mike? Because we haven't been dealing with this very long.
No, it's fascinating. My question is, how come, do souls not remember? Like, from Enoch to, like, they took Enoch, right? So if you were Enoch in the past, wouldn't you remember that?
Not necessarily. When God puts in a soul, particularly when that soul is born the old-fashioned way, he knows that the characteristics of that soul, the personality of that soul, he knows that. He knows what the attributes of that soul are going to be. And so the character of that soul is one that he likes. But if that soul is born the old-fashioned way, through a mother and father, and he puts that soul in the resort, then I don't think that soul is going to have any recollection of what happened previously. He just knows that that's somebody that he can trust that is going to figure it out and come to know him. Now, is it possible that even in the old-fashioned childbirth way that he could have put some knowledge into a soul? Like Noah would be a great example. Noah saved the Salma man. Without Noah, we're not here. Mm-hmm. God was regretted that he had created Nasalma man. He wanted to end the whole Nasalma man experiment. And the only reason it didn't end is he relied on Noach, Noach's wife, his two sons, and their wives to salvage Nasalma man, which then led through Shem to the children of Israel. Would it be possible that Noach had some foreknowledge of a previous life? And I think that previous life was Chanukh, quite possibly. I can tell you from this life, when I was 5 years old, I wasn't a 5-year-old. I've never been a child, ever, my whole life. Never thought like a child. I always knew that this was going to happen. I've known it from my first recollections as a person.
What 20-year-old goes to China to go check into business?
Well, nobody. I mean, it's craziness. Or goes across Siberia, and the kind of things and the risks that I took, and the experiences I've had in life. There's nothing normal. Nothing ever been normal about my life. And I know that as we pull back the layers of what we're learning now, so much of it becomes so vivid. But I think God's in a position, Mike, in this regard, because what your question really is are you born with the knowledge of that last experience or brought into the world? And I think, for example, when we come back as the witnesses, we'll remember every nuance of what we experienced in Shamma'im. Is that it has to be a blend of both, or he's manipulating the system too strongly. If, for example, I was born and I had really crappy parents, I was born into this world, kind of a Dowdian situation, really, really crappy parents. And if I was born in a situation and I had full knowledge of all of those prior lives, that would have made quite the fuss when I was a young boy. And it would have put us in a situation where none of what we have learned and grown together and come to understand, none of that would have ever happened. And God couldn't have the satisfaction of knowing, that soul that I picked, that soul is he's solid. He has the attributes and the attitude that I'm certain he'll figure it out. I can trust him to figure it out. He's done it before. He'll do it again. He'll figure it out. He'll stick with it. And I think that's enormously satisfying to God to know that the message that he wrote, that we would come to understand and we'd be able to apply it.
Yep.
So it's the best answer I have at this point. So Miss Leah has a contribution.
You can probably only hear my voice. I do think that while you're correct, I've always called myself an atheist, not really adhering to that religion very well, because I'd always known somehow there was a God. Just didn't know who that was or where it was or what it was about. I think the answer to your question is no, I don't remember. I don't remember anything. And that was my first thing. Well, why wouldn't I remember? Well, that's because you're getting new hardware, pal. You're getting a new brain. You're getting a new body. Well, I think the only thing that really crosses over is probably the personality.
Yeah, the operating system.
The operating system, the software.
Yeah,
Let's call it software, okay? For us nerds out there. I like to talk nerd. The software operating system is reliable. The hardware can change. But I think the fact that we're tenacious, that we both don't respect authority, that we both prize accuracy and honesty and ethics and morals. That's our operating system. The fact that we're not afraid of really bad people. That's our operating system. That's also part of our life experience.
The attitude and the aptitudes are definitely consistent. That's why when I've looked at the people that were inserted, if there's a significant difference in their attitude, behavior, and aptitudes, then you just strike it off as it's not a fit. They've got to be the same all the way through. And that's why when I first saw the strengths and failures of Adam, and then I saw when we really took a close examination of Dowd at its worst, where he was laying around all day, being a voyeur at night, drinking to excess, and focused on all the wrong things, and then actually turned against God and then blamed everybody for his problem other than himself. It just was a lightning bolt to me and said, oh my God, I've seen this before.
It's a pattern.
I've seen this before. And then I've shared now 2 direct quotes from Yahowah that says that Dowd was Adam. So the conclusion is, I am certain the conclusion with Dowd being Adam is correct. And that therefore God takes a soul and he puts that soul in and out of the timeline as he sees fit based upon the people that he's most comfortable working with. I'm not going to pretend to be certain about what we are given when we're given it in terms of prior understanding. I mean, I can tell you that we've been through a lot since 2008 when I met you, and I started this in 2001, so I don't have much time prior to us meeting. But you would recognize that for the first 10 years, we made some interesting headway, probably came up with 100 innovative conclusions and insights that people had never considered before. And those insights and conclusions are absolutely valid. We're now at a pace where what I would do in 10 years, we do in a month. And so sometimes what you're given to know and understand is provided to you at the time that it's appropriate for you to know and understand it. And that you could not have processed it, or it would have changed the genuineness of the experience. You know, if I came into this 25 years ago with the full knowledge of everything, as opposed to having to work for it. We don't write the 25 books. They're just handed to us. There they are, you know, and they're all perfect. And we don't go through the effort. We don't struggle to learn. We don't make mistakes and grow from them. We're not an example of all because we're just something that sticks out like a sore thumb. I don't think it's real anymore. I think then Yahowah might as well just, with the booming voice on top of the mountain, say, here I am, and these are my expectations, either meet them or go away.
Yeah, I think the psychological impact of knowing all this all up front would be overwhelming.
It's overwhelming now, and it's taken me 25 years to develop it, and it wasn't much of it didn't happen until the last 6 months. And you know, one of the things that is the biggest challenge about all of this too is that when you begin to recognize how the whole plan of Yahowah is able to stay apace and keep his people who are real, so they have their issues, all, you know, rowing, if you will, in the same direction. You realize that to be one of those people, God's asking a lot. That is a really, really big ask, because you can't name one of those people that didn't get kicked in the teeth routinely, that wasn't embarrassed publicly, who wasn't raked over the coals.
At minimum.
At minimum. I mean, every one of them has moments. Even Elia, Elia crawled underneath a tree and said, kill me. I can't do this anymore. I want to die. Mm-hmm. That's Elia of all people. Moshe is saying, twice Moshe took God to task and said, I don't know what you're doing here, but you're a failure and you're mean. And I don't want to do this anymore. I want you to kill me too. Mm-hmm. That's Moshe. And Dowd, begged for his own death as opposed to Absalom.
Yeah.
Now, this is a really tough job.
It's become apparent, Craig, Leah, and gentlemen, is that in almost like a mathematical equation, over the last 6 months, over the last 3 months, over the last 2 weeks, over the last week, Ruth/Boaz is becoming equivalent, more closely equal to Leah and Yada, and the proofs just keep coming in by what's being disclosed. And not only that, is that what's apparent is that you have stalwarts, finishers, people who can be chazak and can take the punch, the kicks, the arrows, the adversity.
Yeah, what you find, and this is really interesting, and the point that I went from trying to flesh this out to just accepting it was Ruth. Leah had told me from the first email that she wrote me, which was a very hostile email. Now, I don't know, goodness, it must be 19 years ago, almost 20 years ago now. And she wrote me because when she was most desperate, she says, okay, God, I've tried everything. I know that you're there. I can't find him. I'll find you by reading the Bible, because I read that thing and it's the end of it contradicts the beginning of it. I went to the rabbi and he tried to put his hand up my skirt. That isn't the answer. I can't find the answer, but I really want to know. And just in a dream, she was told, go ask Ruth. And then when I went to Ruth and I read that story, after we were told by Dowd that from his perspective, Yahweh's Amah saved him. He is thanking Yahweh for sending his Amah, this productive mother, who was the one that saved him. And then I'm reading the Ruth story again, and she begins by saying, I am your Amah. She says it twice. Mm-hmm. And then she's speaking to Boaz, who's one of the two columns on the temple. And so he's no ordinary dude.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the unofficial mayor of Bethlehem. And I'm reading this whole story, and she tells Boaz, I'm going to deliver to you the kinsman redeemer. We know who the kinsman redeemer is. And Dowd, of course, was her great grandson, or great-great-grandson, one or the other. And so she wasn't doing that to Boaz, not in that life. But it's a factual statement. She did. And in Bethlehem. And then I'm toying with the idea, well, there's more to this, because God had to figure out a way to save mortal man, and he needed somebody that wasn't going to give up, because building that damn boat, can you imagine the splinters? Can you imagine the hands that would have been crushed every time one of those glue lamps banged the wrong way? And somebody is actually going in the middle of a landlocked area, is going to build a damn boat because God asked him to. He's being mocked by everybody. And what kind of a personality would do such a thing?
Yeah, I have a question on that.
The biggest boat in history.
And then you read God's salutation to that story, how that story is emblematic of the covenant and the ark of the covenant. And the rainbow is the sign of the covenant. And then you read God's salutation to each of those players and what they represent at the end of the story, and how they literally saved Nasalma man, and Shem went on to be the forefather of what became Israel, and you go, oh, okay, well, that's and then you read that when you put the timeline together, you know when Noah finally checked out?
Yeah, Isaac and Abraham on Mount Moriah.
Absolutely. He's one of the witnesses. He's one of the witnesses that's watching this whole experience with Abraham, Ishak, and the lamb who is Dowd, and with Yahowah, which is why he's called a young man, because that's God's inside joke. Because I'm younger than Dowd, and it's been the inside joke since I first met him. I've always been the young man, and you know what Katan means in terms of the Katan Mayor?
Younger.
It means the younger one.
Younger. What's 600 years?
Luminary. And I'm reading that and saying, oh my goodness. And then you're reading the story of he was uncovered after having a couple of cocktails and probably frisky with the old lady, and he's sleeping without the covers on, naked. And I know somebody that does that every night. And you just don't. Your personality just doesn't change. And then you're reading the story of Ruth and Boaz, and when she's having this conversation, all of a sudden she's so interested about covering up with the cloak. You need to cover this up, and she starts with the same story, and you're going, oh, I've heard that story before. Yeah. And the way that it's woven together, it just after a while, and then you read how Ruth comes into town. She is really in love with her mother-in-law. She's had a husband that's passed away, and she makes that great speech. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. Where you go, I go. And one of the great speeches ever. And her introduction, and she gets to Bethlehem. And she's going to take care of her mother-in-law. So she says, there's a field over there that they're allowing us to harvest some, whatever, I think grain of some sort. I'm going to go there. And she says, that's my relative. That's my favorite guy in the world over there. That's Boaz's. He owns most of this town. And you hear the story about how she went to and knew she was going to get noticed by Boaz. And then Boaz does notice her. She catches her eye big time. And the first thing he does is, yeah, woman, I know all about you. You don't need to introduce yourself. Yeah, you're a really good woman. Yeah, I've heard your story. I know exactly who you are. And then their first real conversation is this: I'm going to deliver to you the kinsman redeemer. I am your Amah. Now, when I'm reading things like that, I said, God's cheating here, man. He's had this whole story with 100 details that tell us who the characters are. And the purpose was to tell us that when Dowd came back to fulfill Pesach Matzah B'Kodim, after he'd had such a rough go in his previous life, there was no way God sent him in there to do that alone without support. He had such a crappy mother and father in his prior life. There was no way that God would send him in with a crappy mother and father again, or with absentee brothers again.
No.
And then I'm saying, okay, well, then we know who delivered the kinsman redeemer and to whom. And then I go back, I said, I think there's something in that 22nd Mizmowr that explains this. And there is, right in the middle of the story. He just says, a little departure here, but my father impregnated my mother, and I was born with the breaking of the water, and I came out of her womb, and then I suckled on her breasts. Mm-hmm. And you're saying, okay, you're born the old-fashioned way. What a story! And then you go back to the prophecy that I shared. I don't know if it's yesterday or today on Isaiah 7:14, I believe it is, the one that's always corrupted to the virgin birth, and you find out that it's a word that is taken directly out of the 89th Mizmowr that takes us right to Dowd and to the relationship Dowd had with his, what would have been his adoptive mother at that point, his surrogate mother, although he doesn't call her a surrogate mother, he just calls her in the 31st Mizmowr. And you find out there's a direct tie between Isaiah 7:14 and the supposed virgin birth and the Amah and what it says in the 89th Mizmowr. And you say every time you turn around, there's another affirmation of it. And what you find is that Yahweh was always consistent.
He is.
This was
Craig, on a more, I will say, on a more contemporary basis, or contemporaneous basis, if I remember correctly, when Leah first communicated with you, it was like, who are you? A goy teaching us Torah. And Yah comes full circle. Well, look at Obed Edom and what Yashiyah says in 63. Who comes around to unite Yisrael and Yehudah? Who does it? I'm not goy. I'm just bringing that up because that's I don't think no accident.
No, and you're dealing with things like Moshe knew us, not only as Eldod and Midod, but he is writing the 18th chapter strictly about Dowd, and then he has a whole chapter devoted to the Nakri. And then when Solomon decides he's going to reintroduce the Nakri to Israel, he knows they know all about the Nakri. It's in the Torah. And he's not introducing somebody he doesn't know, because that Nakri was instrumental in his father's recovery and his upbringing. It was all about him. Once the lights go on and then you say, I know the plan now and the people, then every time you read a prophecy or every time you read even something that's in the Torah, immediately the lights go off and you say, or go on and you say, wow, okay, well, there's another affirmation of that one. And I've heard
to the point where you're there with in Matzah, you're with him at Chag Matzah.
Yeah.
When he's fulfilling that prophecy.
Yeah, Eliuth is the term that he uses, which I struggled to understand what it means until you understand the role of the tree of knowledge and its relationship to the tree of lives, and how the Choder is described quite literally as the tree of knowledge. It's Etzadayath, is the tree of knowledge. And when you're reading that and then you look at Eliuth is from El, and it really only has two primary meanings. It's either lamb, a ram actually, or the most prominent of trees. And so it becomes pretty obvious that the players all along have known who the players are in the story and how they continue to make a reappearance. Is that your only concern? Is would you have some memory of a prior life, Mike?
I have some other comments. Ruth said she was a Nakri in Ruth 2:10, chapter 2, verse 10. I also had a question about Noah. So it's never specifically said who Noah's wife was or who any of the kids' wives were.
Correct. It's very seldom that the wife's name, like Noach, Chanach had a wife, because they gave birth to Methuselah. So, but the wife's never mentioned. Noach had a wife, but the wife's name is not mentioned. So
but
there are lots of
there may be a clue. So the sister of usually it doesn't mention women much at all. So the sister of Tubal-Cain was named Naamah. So it's always been postulated that Naamah was Noah's wife. Tubal-Cain was a metallurgist, so that would have been handy. Have a brother-in-law that was black metallurgist, or maybe Naamah even learned the craft from her brother.
Hey, did you hear the story that was just reported? I think it was yesterday, the day before, in Israel, up north in the coast of the coast of Israel. They found a shipwreck from the 11th century BCE 9th century and 8th century BCE. So Dowd's time and right after Dowd. And the thing that was so interesting about the shipwreck is that no one understood at the time how iron, which was the most valuable commodity during that time, how it was distributed. And what they found is that if you take iron all the way to the final point where you made a billet of it, and you took it by sea, which is the primary means of transportation, it rusted and pitted and rotted, and it wasn't very useful. But if you don't take the iron all the way to the point where you're the final firing and you pound it all out, and you leave it in this kind of a pillowish state, that it's self-protecting, and you find that the iron, from a metallurgy point of view, is still fresh and malleable and usable. And they found in these shipwrecks enormous amounts of iron that had been just processed for transport and hadn't gone through the final refinery or the pounding the billet form. Mm-hmm. So metallurgy, does go back further than what we had previously thought. And I remember going to Ron Wyatt's home years ago, and I don't know how much Ron Wyatt was right or wrong, and I'm not going to try to testify for him, but there's a lot of things that Ron Wyatt ended up saying and found that have subsequently appeared to be true. But he has a number of samples in his home from the Noah's Ark find, and some of those are metal samples and also petrified wood samples that are just really interesting when you look at what the metallurgy was that was used if he in fact found that site, and I have no reason to doubt that he didn't, and because the hydrodynamics of the method that he actually built a 3D relief of the mountains of Ararat as they were likely existed back at the time, because they're volcanic, they've changed. And he put a replica of the Ark in this thing that he had framed up with, so it would hold water and then let the water come out. And it says, okay, well, that's where it settled. And he went right to that place, and that's where it was. And he showed me the metal. Oh, he didn't. His widow showed me the metallurgy of it, and it was fascinating. And the fact he showed that he had samples of the glue lamps that were used. Pretty well.
The oldest bronze sword found was in Turkey, dating back to the time of Noah. It was bronze made of copper and arsenic, actually. Mm-hmm. Is the oldest sword ever found. I'd call it more of a dagger. It wasn't real long. Mm-hmm. But it's fascinating. If Amah was Noah's wife, then the line of Cain and Seth would have survived the flood, because Amah was from the line of Cain and Noah was from the line of Seth. And if Noah started when he was 24 years old, he would have had like 500 years to build the ark. Mm-hmm.
Imagine sticking with it for that length of time.
And the sons could have contributed. Well, I mean, when you're a baby, you can't, but they were 100 years old when the flood happened. So they could have contributed for maybe 80 years or, 90 years.
I think you get so much more productive time when you're living that long. It's not fair that you live to be 500 years old and you have this idea that you're going to be like 80 like you would be now, right? Your productive period of life has got to expand as well, from 25 to 425 or whatever. You can't be.
What do you think about the theory? And I've heard a number of people argue it, that we know from the Torah's description that the flood began with a deep upwelling of seawater. That's what the terminology in the Torah describes, as an upwelling of deep seawater. And then we find the Burkle impact crater dating to about that period, in the precise location where we find sediment from the ocean going all the way up through Mesopotamia. And we find that the Black Sea rose 500 feet, and at that period changed from fresh water to salt water, and that the Bosporus Straits were blown out at that time. And we now know from Ballard that there were early civilizations, quite advanced civilizations, that were around the shores of the Black Sea that were all inundated by that, which would have been Nasalma man. That the theory is that because of the size of that impact crater and the angle that it hit, that it actually changed ever so slightly the rotation of the Earth on its axis, which had a significant effect after all of the debris fallout from that strike, that had some effect on the longevity of humankind.
That's tough. That's
What do you
tough
think?
because a day's a day. We measure a day from sun up to or sundown to sundown the next day. And so if you get more sunlight, then of course your year's going to be longer, but that doesn't mean your measurement of living 500 years is longer, right? You've just had more time in that.
More water vapor in the air would preclude some of the cosmic ray and the decay of our bodies. I haven't gone into the physics of it, but the
theory is less UV radiation or gamma rays.
Yes,
I mean there was more. What am I trying to say? After the flood, there was more gamma radiation or UV radiation than before the flood. So that causes cancer or reduces our lifespan.
It changes the elasticity of those cells too. Around what the technical term is of the thing that causes cells to be elastic and replicate. But
the telomeres?
The telomeres, that's it. Yeah, the telomeres that we had just the change of the telomeres alone is enough to account for the degradation and the length of human life. And that could have been written into the code of it, or it could have been partially a factor of these events.
Many years ago, I read a story about a canopy theory where the Earth was covered with a water vapor.
Mm-hmm.
That was true or not in some quality, at least it sounded like. Is that what would happen if we live 1,000 years now? Later, it's going to be, this Earth will be protected some way like that?
Yeah, it could well be. I've spent a fair amount of trips back and forth to the petrified forest that you find in New Mexico and places like that when you're driving through. And it's interesting that in the largest petrified logs, there are no tree rings, which the tree rings are indication of wet years versus dry years and the thickness of it and that sort of thing. But there weren't indications of tree rings, which means that we could have had a water canopy that may have made it possible. For example, why were dinosaurs so large? What enabled them to grow to that size? What was different in our climate back there? And why was the area around the Arctic, why did it have tropical fauna and flora? Because that's what we find in the stomachs and the mouths and the samples around the animals that passed away back there at that time. It was tropical. So we clearly had a water vapor of some kind shield that protected us from cosmic rays and also made the Earth more moderate and somehow elongated life, made it possible to be that size. And you can't be that size anymore. That just the environment won't allow it.
Is there also DNA degradation over time?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's very true. That when you look at the history of the human genome as we have, we're less healthy. We are, as a species, we are deteriorating, and what you would expect of really every species, because 99% of gene mutations are negative. So,
entropy.
And when I've seen some statistics too in terms of the fertility of men and the ability to impregnate women, it's hugely down from what it was. Men are hardly men today. We've had some really significant degradation in the human genome. The ultimate example, I guess, of that would be Donald Trump. But I'm sure there are other examples.
What you're saying, Craig, about the men testosterone levels have gone down dramatically in the last century to century and a half, and there's almost a linear correlation with the introduction of chemicals, fertilizer, and the obsessive use of seed oils, which have multiple, have bonds which oxidize and age us very rapidly. There is a correlation, and that also correlates with heart disease, diabetic syndrome. I mean, it might be hard to believe, but at the beginning of the 20th century, coronary artery disease, heart attacks, was a very rare disease. Cardiologists were a very rare breed. And what Mike
now
is
it's the number
saying,
one cause of death.
Yeah, now it is. Yeah, what Mike is saying is the events that occurred, the change in the atmosphere is, the gamma rays with a very high energy, short frequency light that does cause that can cause malignancy. And then with each cellular replication, our telomere actually shortened.
Yes. And it has gotten to the point now it's so short that we are, as a species, we are degrading rapidly. So, JB, as you were first exposed to this, and I don't expect anyone to say, well, yeah, well, what a great theory, but because it was a lot for me to process, and I am now in a position where I've never been before, which is that previously you would translate something, you'd think about it, and over time you would develop an understanding of what you were processing. And starting about a year ago, something changed where I was actually seeing things before I would find the verification of them, and then I'd be led to the verification of them and work out the what God was trying to say. It's just like, okay, you done a nice job up to this point, but we've got to hurry it along, and so I'm going to accelerate the pace that you're going to discover these things. But this idea that we came into with the 31st Mashal, that Dowd had a mother and she had a husband, and they're the ones who tried to get his head screwed back on right. And then where that goes with Leah, the Leah of who said that she is the Asherah and what that meant, and then which is how that psalm ends, and that she's referred to as this very special mother of Dowd, with her husband making this recovery for the son who is the king, and what that led to. What was your reaction, JB?
For me, I'd say I am very grateful I found Yahowah when I did, and I went on this journey this whole time.
Yes.
Because if I came along now, I would probably have a lot different reaction than I do, because I've been reading this for so long, studying it, verifying your translations and all that, to the point where I pretty much trust you. I still verify everything I can, but my initial reaction was, that's interesting. Let me go look at it.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm glad I came along when I did, because if I didn't have that experience and I came in and started listening to some of this, I'd be like, this guy's off his rocker.
That's exactly why I said I wanted to pull away from social media and just focus on the core family that we're going to take into the millennial celebration of Sukkah, because the pace that we're discovering things now is such that these kinds of things are not going to resonate with the average person, and we don't have enough time left to get somebody up to pace such to the point that God's going to trust them to be part of the Shabuwah harvest at this point. So there's no point in continuing in those venues, and our responsibility is now, let's complete the library, let's complete the story, let's get our key team and family up to pace, and that group, there's there's an advantage. That's why I'm going through. This is the most difficult thing that I've come across in terms of sharing. Even though it's obvious with Dowd that it was true, and therefore if he did it with Dowd and he's doing it with Elia, the likelihood he's doing it with other people is very high, and then the evidence is significant. So it really shouldn't be a shock to the system, but I know that it is. And your point was my concern at the time. It's I'm not very good at keeping secrets. I've validated this now, but you share this, and it's really going to spin some heads. And at this point, we have to recognize that what we're sharing is not for everybody anymore.
But you made a very wise. You made a very wise executive decision several days ago, and decided, starting with the Mikra, we're going to go back and we're going to reinforce the basics. We're going to go over, the building blocks so that we keep things in perspective, and build and build and build so that it makes more sense. And
and I think that was the key, is that let's build our own foundation so that it is rock solid. So when we're confronted with something new, we're not, we don't have our chins down on the table saying, oh no, what am I going to deal with that? It's, of course, that's a natural, that is the way you would expect Yahowah to operate. I mean, that was my reaction when I finally figured it out. Of course, that's exactly what I would do. If I were Yahowah, knowing him, that's what I would do. So of course, that's what he's going to do. And I will tell you that even in these basics presentations, for example, as I was going through Shabuwah yesterday and prepping for those shows, which will be 6, 7, 8 shows, it's a lot of material to go through on Shabuwah. I was told by Perry, who has looked at every question and every answer that exists on the Ask Yada, which is actually Ask the AI Assistant, questions, that the most often asked question was on who are those 8 people that are mentioned regarding Shabuwah, Teruah, and Kippurim, and actually Sukkah. Who are those 8 people? And so I said, well, I think I'd probably better go back and translate that whole section again and think it through. And so I'm only doing this for the basics because that's what the program's all about. And I came across one of the most riveting prophecies I've encountered so far. I haven't shared it with only with 2 people at this point, but it's riveting what it has to say. And so you'd say, how in the world did God come up with that? All those many years ago. It was 3,500 years ago that he wrote that. How did he do that?
So all of a sudden you're going to keep a secret?
Well, no, it's not. It's just a teaser.
A teaser.
Yes. I've actually.
You got to listen to the next show.
Yeah, it's in my Shabuwah. In fact, I've actually sent it to you. You guys could actually find it if you really hunted for it. But because I think I sent you, each of you, the Shabuwah notes, just in case we did a show on Shabuwah and you wanted to prep for that show. It's in there. It's in that Shabuwah notes, because and it's now I'm giving you a real clue. It's also in the preliminary discussion leading up to who those 8 people are, and so it's oh boy, it's blow your mind kind of thing. So anyway, JB, I'm with you on that. That was my same reaction. Is that, and my other part of the reaction was and after I read Ruth, I was that was it for me. I said, okay, I get it. And then I read the affirmations of Dowd, and I said, okay, I'm not going to argue with this. And it felt just so natural to me after the whole 31st Mizmowr, the 51st Psalm, the 31st Mashal proverb, and then the 51st Psalm, and then the whole story of Ethan Hajraki, what his name means, and how you can trace that personality back. And so I became convinced, but then I realized that, and I had a conversation with God. I said, this is not going to go over well. God, I get it. I'm pleased with it. I get your story. And oh, by the way, it's a damn big ask. You've put me in a lot of very difficult positions so far. And I know you're confident we're going to see this one through, but it's a really big ask. I know your give is huge, but you're asking a lot. This is, I didn't sign on for this. I'm going to accept it. I'm going to move on. We're going to finish this, get this thing through. But I knew this was going to be a difficult thing. And then the thought came to my mind, and it's been prevalent for the last couple of days, is we actually have gone through the Ask Yada log. And what we found is that there are 99% of the use has been great questions, smart people. And we can even identify who the people are. And we have to have the logs, because if you don't have the logs, then you don't know whether or not the AI is performing correctly. And now we see there were some entries down in Dallas. The guys came to me and said, man, obvious who asked those questions. They were really good questions. And Grok did a good job. Not Grok, but the Claude version of our AI did a good job of answering them. But when we had several of the Mother Goddess cults really trying to be manipulative and nefarious, the thought that came to my mind, particularly after they had one of their little flying monkeys write an entire book just to disparage me, is that how lucky we are, how fortunate we are that they're gone. Somebody that malignant, who is just doesn't want to add anything to the conversation. All they want to do is tear down. And you wonder, say, okay, let's just say that you were successful and you undermined everything that I've learned and everything that's been said about me. Let's say you were able to do that. Then what? Then what?
They get to celebrate in hell with all the people they brought with them.
Okay, but beyond what God says about them. But then what? So let's just say that the one person that brought you all together, that you're able to prove that you were idiots those 10 years that you were all brought together, and you were commending everything that you were learning. And let's just say that you proved that you were wrong and that he's wrong. Where does that leave you?
Mm-hmm. With nothing, because
so if you really think that you have a new insight and that your new insight is worth developing, wouldn't you have a public disclosure website? Wouldn't you write your own books? Wouldn't you go away and say, okay, we left that. We have no interest of ever going there again or saying anything about that. We're going to go on our new way, and we're going to demonstrate that we have the answer.
They see your translations as a buffet. They can pick and choose what they want. They can change Yahowah's name, but we'll keep this intact. And now look at where they are. They're right back to where they were, just Yod Hey Wah Hey, because they're just so confused.
Look, their goal, instead of growing and glowing, their goal is to rip, tear, and destroy.
Correct. And that's all they do.
And they basically are. What they're doing at this point in time, at this juncture, in my opinion, is worse than what Miriam did.
Oh, of course, it's much worse. However, it's also, I think
it's magnitudes worse, Jeff.
Magnitudes worse than what Miriam did. I agreed, and that's why God took us to that story. But by the same token, it's marvelous.
And it's
absolutely marvelous. God now has a filter to say you're gone, and we're not going to be bothered by people that could be that malignant.
Yeah, this all started. My position. I'm sorry. This all started with Leah, and I know that you called them flying monkeys, and they actually early on attacked Jake, and they were just saying extremely vile things about you, but in particular about Leah. And I just have been thinking this last week. I just think it's great that Leah stands as a living rebuke. This is Yahowah's response to what they said about her. No. This is how he answered them. This is who Leah is to me.
Yes. Yeah, I think the timing of letting them go and make, just like Miriam did, she wanted to use Moshe's wife as the needle to turn the people against him. And that was her approach. And of course, God didn't even respond to that. He just went directly to, no, you're not. But when they took that approach, and then God comes out and he has this whole story about the Amah and being Asherah Ashar, and being Ruth, it completely exonerates Leah. She didn't need exoneration, but what a wonderful, it's got, God said, I've got your back.
Yeah. Talk about separating the wheat from the chaff. You talk about that. Yes. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Captain Kirk, you've been together a long time. We've had a very frank relationship, very close relationship for a long time. What was your thought as we were going through that 31st Mashal and where it led to God has some people that are souls that he likes and trusts and redeploys?
Well, quick background, 20 years of studying theology, every book there was, and I still couldn't figure it out, and that was a pretty smart fellow through college and all, and so I know, and debater and everything, I know things that I know, and I know how to look up things. So all of a sudden I ran across you, and all of a sudden everything started making sense, and I put them all in order, and it's been like almost 20 years now, and
still making sense.
Yeah, it's making sense. I know how to prove it. I was doing it today just for fun, and I checked everything you've been coming up with, and we say go where the words lead, no matter what, because it always turns out to be true. And so, but it doesn't disturb me. And I thought it disturb people. The only thing I thought is it might disturb so and so and so and so and so and so.
Yes.
They would go, oh my God, what is he trying to do?
Yes.
And then I keep one thought in mind. I've known you a long time. I gave thousands and thousands of dollars a month to all these people I used to be involved with in Christianity. Nothing I wouldn't do. You ain't asked me for a dime yet.
No.
I mean,
no.
And it cost me a lot of money. So, but not to you. So come on, if there's something you're getting out of this besides this wonderful relationship with Yahowah, I don't know what it is.
Well, I get the wonderful relationship with you guys.
Well, that's true. No, but
and, I have an arranged marriage because evidently I made a deal with Yahowah saying, I'll do this, but I want her to come back with me.
Well, you're right.
There are some perks that when I say, God, that's a big ask. You're putting us back in this position now, and and you come back and you say, yeah, but young man, look what the dividends are, and didn't I give you a great team? You're well supported. You're in a beautiful place. You couldn't be in a finer situation. So it's you're gonna see it through, and it's gonna be great. And I think the issue is, and Dr. Jeff, maybe you're in the worst or best position to have an appreciation of this. The thing that changed my mindset on all of this, as I began to have an appreciation of how meaningless the body was. And I became to have that when I realized that when Dowd had volunteered, he was sort of coerced, but he was talked into it and agreed with it, that he should serve as the Passover lamb. And that's not human sacrifice because the body is disposable. God can give us a new body at any moment and a much better body. And there's going to be times we're going to have our souls go in and out of all different types of energy-based systems and physical bodies of our choosing. We're literally going to be able to talk matter into a situation that pleases us. Once you realize that the soul, the nefesh, is not something that even can be explained within our frame of reference, which is 3 dimensions. It has no mass and it has no energy that we are able to measure, and yet it is essential to life, and it is absolutely separate from the physical body, and yet the physical body can't live without it. And so what is it? And once you get a better feeling of how the soul is the sole repository of our aptitudes, our attitudes, our personalities, and all of these kinds of things are enveloped in our soul, and that the body is a meaningless vessel for the soul and easily manipulated and replaced. then the whole thing begins to make a lot more sense. How God can take a soul and plug that soul into a period of time any way He wishes to do it, and bring that soul back to Shamayim and redeploy the soul when it needs to be, when that particular personality and attitude and aptitudes are right for the next situation. So the understanding of a soul made a big difference for me. Now, you're a medical doctor. What do you think about that? Am I making too big a deal of the difference between a nefesh and a bashar? Or
not at all. What you just did actually quite eloquently is explain the reason why souls are eternal and live in perpetuity, and why bodies are not, and why a body can be replaced. The soul doesn't follow E equals MC squared, as you were saying.
Yeah,
it cannot be quantified. It's hard. We can begin to qualify it as you have, but it's basically, it's eternal, and it's who we really are. Mm-hmm. This covering, just what we're about, although it's a wonderful design when you think about how it's created, mm-hmm. even for the transient time that we're here, mm-hmm. it's all about the soul, which is eternal. And that's why, when we've spoken over the years, knowing Yah, knowing Torah, that's the ultimate Rafeh, healer, because that provides eternal life. Someone like me, it's sort of like, a mechanic who's been given a certain set of skills mm-hmm. to deal with the transient flesh.
The physical body, yeah. There's doctors of souls and doctors of flesh. No. Very different things. By the way, all souls are not eternal. Most souls are not. They're mortal. But a soul can be eternal when a physical body cannot be.
Thank you.
The beauty of a soul, because it has no mass, a soul can transition this universe. You can see the entire universe as a soul with no mass, but you would never be able to do that with a body. So your soul has to be free of your body for this universe to have any value to anyone. And
thank you for bringing that up.
To leave the third and to go into the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh dimension, you have to be transitioning those dimensions with a soul without mass, enveloped in energy for that to occur, or it is physically impossible.
Speaking about fundaments, which we learned from you, is that there are three destinations, for potential destinations for the soul.
Yes. One of our very first discoveries.
Which is very
almost profound. 25 years ago.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. That's correct.
So you were my guess is you didn't have much of an issue with the Yah's plan of redeploying souls, because a soul is something that he can't. There's souls that Yahweh's going to cherish forever, that he has come to trust. He's gone through his evaluation period. He says, I trust you, and I want to spend more time with you, and we're going to do stuff together. We're going to be deployed doing stuff with Yahowah forever. So it seemed very natural to me. It sounds like it sounded pretty natural to you.
Trust, from everything that I understand and know and what I'm learning, trust and rely on Yah's word, and just the level of understanding and beyond just making the connections now is like you said, beyond exponential. But if I can convey, and now it's a late date, and I've told you this for many years, if you can just introduce somebody to Yah and introduce somebody to your work, and they can take the, no pun intended, the bull by the horns, that's potentially eternal life. Mm-hmm. That's real healing. That's real doctoring, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that even though we're at a late date now for somebody to come up in speed and demonstrate to Yahowah they're trustworthy, should be trusted to go beyond the three dimensions of our planet, those that there is an element of this, because all of us are here because we heard or saw something that piqued our curiosity. and it brought us here, and then we pursued that until the point we could wrap our heads around it and understand it. That anybody that is in that position now is really ideally positioned for us when we return. They'll be all ears wanting to know more, and there'll be an ideal candidate either for the Teruah gleaning or for the ultimate purging of that mortal remnant for Sukkah on Teruah. So I think there is tremendous value in us saying something that does resonate with people. But I think that the whole story is just so fatherly, so parental, so supportive when you consider it this way. Wouldn't if you had a favorite relationship and you're adopting that person into your family, wouldn't you want to just continue to enjoy working with them in all manner of situations and
Sure.
see how it all develops?
Yeah, and God knows you're gonna succeed. He's already said so. And when I think of what Yahshua 63 is going to say, how it's going to happen, and what's going to happen, it's going to happen.
Right. I want to challenge that just a little bit, and that God is really unhappy. God is really, really unhappy right now, and he is getting more and more unhappy. When you read things like Yeshua 13 or anything in Yoel, God's really angry with humanity, and so we obviously only succeed to a fairly minimal level because he says, I'm going to make humanity as rare as the golden Orifor. So we don't convince very many people. So you have to start with the realization that to be successful from God's point of view is to be doing what we're doing right now. To have a committed group of men and women who are working, who are learning, who are loving Yah, and are committed to seeing it through. From God's point of view, this is success. And when you read how the best characters in his story struggled through their lives, and most of them gave up at one point or another, just finishing the job is success. Just finishing the job. It'll be so rare to finish the job.
Yeah.
So, Will, when you first heard this, I just think this is such an interesting topic to talk about how Yahowah has intervened all the way through the process. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that's, again, it's, it is the ultimate chess move. Yahowah gives, there's a lot of freedom, a lot of free will out there, and that's a lot that can go wrong. And he's trying to get something very specific done. So it's just fascinating that it seems like that was his solution. That's how he deals with it. That's his little edge that he has. Yahowah has a real sense of fairness and gamesmanship. But this is what he kind of held this back for himself. As long as he had the people that he could work with of his choosing, he can go with that. He doesn't need an army of people. He needs a handful, a few good men and women that he can really trust. And I think one time you said Yahowah's looking for sort of rough and tumble people who are willing to take a stand. I mean, it's just, that's the rough outline of what he's looking for. Just I'm in sales, and we call it getting it done or make it happen. I mean, there are just some people who just make things happen. You would have been one of those people, Yada, because you brought companies public. So as a CEO with a lot of executive function, you have a lot of responsibility, and you obviously were very good at that.
But I grew up as a salesman. That was my career, and I was crappy at it, and so I had to invent a different way to sell because I didn't have the personality for it.
Yeah,
and so I did essentially was I figured out by talking to people what they needed, not so much what they wanted, what they needed, and then I figured out how to provide to them what they needed. And if you're providing to people what they need and you're explaining to them, I've surveyed your situation. I cared a lot about your situation. I've thought it through. I've examined it. And I think this is what you need to be successful. And I'm here to provide that for you.
Yeah.
At that point, you don't have to sell anything.
No, it's very, the sales process is very easy when you lay it out that way and you take away the salesmanship and the, talking constantly and talking fast or whatever. Your better salespeople are really good teachers and communicators and can isolate what you need and that they can solve that specific need. And they're very realistic about it.
Yeah, you begin by analyzing what needs to be accomplished, and then you provide that. And then you demonstrate that when things go wrong, and they do. And that, I think this is the thing that is so essential to Yahowah. He wants us to make mistakes so we can learn from them and grow from them. He wants us to trip and fall so we can get back up and prove that we have some stamina and some stick-to-itiveness. That's the whole thing that changed my career as a salesman. It not only inventing a way to sell such that I invested all of my time getting to know what the buyers needed to be successful, and then how I could offer them precisely what it was that they needed. But the other thing was, sometimes the analysis wasn't as good as it should have been, or sometimes there's other circumstances that come in that the thought process may have been outstanding, but it just didn't work. And very early in the process, every time there was a problem, I fixed the problem. If a product didn't sell, I bought it back. I became the guarantor for the buyers that I represented, such the word got out that a buyer could not get themselves into trouble. They could not make a bad purchase if they trusted me on a promotion. That if it failed, I'd buy it back. And you might say, how do you do that if you're getting started as a salesman? Well, I'll tell you what, it was really tough initially, but when you get a reputation for doing that, everybody wants to do business with you. And you make so daggone much money on commission, or everybody wanting to do business with you, it becomes really easy to buy stuff back. And when you buy it back, you generate more business than you could ever imagine.
That was the brilliance. That was the brilliance of Value America. Craig, you made them an offer they couldn't refuse if they had a brain.
Yes. Yeah, it was a much better mousetrap than Amazon is today. But things happen, and the way things happen, it led to this opportunity.
One last thing, Craig, that's really remarkable to me. It's how much Yahowah trusts us. It's Amunah, and so Yahowah asks us to trust him. He really wants that. But he's willing to demonstrate to you, or at least to this group of people, this A team, or whatever we want to call them, the eight team. He set this up well.
He does, and there's all sorts of times where I say, "God, are you sure you're managing this correctly?" I mean, I know me, and I'm not sure I would roll the dice with me. I mean, I'm not going to give up on you. I'm happy to have the job and everything, but certainly you should have been able to do better than me. And then he says, "No, you're pretty much what I expected, and you're doing pretty good for a young man." That's just his approach. So and he's not looking for perfection. The one that as soon as that weight is removed from you, that he is not looking for perfection. He wants us to make mistakes so we can correct them. I tell that to my favorite fact checker so that he knows that mistakes are part of the process. We need to make them so we can correct them and learn from them. But when you realize that that's part of the process and that it's fun to learn, it's fun to grow, it's fun to find affirmations. It's really fun to stumble into something that God wrote 3,500 years ago, knowing that we would find it at the right time, so we could use it, and we would laugh along with them and say, I remember when 2 days ago, Rich walked into my study and I had just translated. I said, "Rich, you're just not going to believe it. This will just blow your mind. This is so funny." And that happens all the time. So that takes the burden off. And then when you realize finally what Dowd did on Matzah, where he took our guilt and deposited it at Sheol, so that we may think that we're kind of shabby. That's not how Yahweh sees us.
Mm-hmm.
He only sees the good, even in Kevin.
Oh,
Hey,
Kevin,
I got mods.
What was your? I mean, you were among the first to hear this, Kevin. That it became evident that God had some personalities that He liked using and that had worked out well for Him in the past, and that the single most important moment, really, in human history, is recovering His relationship with Dowd. Mm-hmm. And that's how we were introduced to this reality, and how essential it was to make this happen, where Leah is referred to as Dowd's mother, and I'm referred to as her husband, and very, very favorable circumstances. Then it leads us directly back to the 89th Mizmowr as the solution when we're going through that.
Yeah, we talked a little bit. Kevin? We talked a little bit about it on the phone once. I'm okay with Adam as Dowd. That makes sense. Firstborn son, first neshama. I mean, that just layers in nicely, And then when we start to have, because there is Torah evidence for those things, I'm okay with El Dowd, my Dowd, Gabriel, Michael. All those things were really gelling and making sense. Yes. And I remember we had that conversation that as soon as we start bringing in others, that other souls, whoever they may be, all of a sudden, all these players in the Torah game board become on the table, right? Who was Moshe before? Who was Eliah before? And you have alluded to Samson even, I mean, all of them. Why not continuously work with the same folks over and over that you can trust, And as the evidence comes up for it, they make sense. Now, you being Dowd's father and Eliah being Amah, Dowd's mother, that's not a stretch, because it is in that time in 33 CE. Right. Yahowah is still God's father. Okay.
Absolutely.
His first,
the father of his soul.
Right.
We even in the realism of what happened 33 years prior to 33 BC or CE, even in that realism, we don't technically become Dowd's father. His soul was conceived by Yahowah. We become his supportive parents. We become what he didn't have in that previous life. The reason he had such trouble with women and such trouble with going up and down and instability in the relationship and seeing things through is he did not have the opportunity to have a good mother and father. And having a good mother and father makes a real difference in a person as they're growing up and what they're capable of doing, and also just the quality of their life, of having someplace you can go that your family supports you, they love you, and they are committed to you, and they know who you are, and they appreciate who you are. So it's still with Dowd a symbolic realism, if you will.
Yeah,
the physical
Dowd
body
was raised by sheep the
first
first time.
Yeah, the physical body which was tossed away, right? Is okay. So we conceived that physical body that was tossed away. Yahowah conceived the soul, which is why we called him Emmanuel, God with us. And had already written 1,000 years earlier a song that called him Elion.
Elion, exactly.
The presence of God with us. So we clearly got it and knew what the responsibility was.
Yeah,
we've been through this with him in much rougher times than this.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other thing we talked about that I wanted to circle back to was, do you remember the Torah story about when Yahowah goes to the guy and says, "Hey, guy, we're going to do this thing," and then halfway through that thing that they're going to do, that Yahowah says, "You know what? You're no longer my guy. I'm going to go work with these other guys over here." Do you remember that story? Yeah, no, I don't remember.
No, I don't.
That Yah starts with, "Hey, Moshe, let's go," and then doesn't finish with Moshe.
Oh, yeah. So what you're saying, saying there is no story where God approaches Moshe and he picks the wrong guy.
He picks the wrong guy. I don't remember any of them that, we got halfway through the thing.
Noah got the ark half built and said, this is too tedious. You need to find another guy.
Right.
Yeah. That doesn't happen in the, there's no place that happens in the story.
In the Torah, yeah.
And that's why I think that Moshe was Joseph.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's how he became familiar with Egypt and fit right in. And as Joseph demonstrated, he had the stick-with-itness that he would get it done, because Moshe was asked to do a far more difficult job than Joseph. I think that Moshe's job was actually more difficult than Dowd's job because of the attitude of the children of Israel.
Sure.
And the fact he really did not want to do that job. He really did not want it.
And he got started on the back third.
Yeah, I think Moshe's was the hardest job of all. And that's why I'm convinced that God did not find him tending sheep and say, Moshe, you're my guy. We're going to go do this. And when Moshe says he doesn't want to do it, it just came right back in his face. He says, come on, pal. I made the mouth. I can make the mouth work. What's your next excuse? But they'd been through it before.
Yeah.
I can't prove I haven't taken the time to do it with Samson yet, but Samson seems like the ideal candidate for Elia. I mean, I can't imagine that Elia has only had one life with all of the stuff that he did in terms of the dress rehearsal for the Adamah Parah. And I'll check it out, and I haven't done it yet. It's just not been a priority.
Sure.
There's other things that are closer to home. I want to know who this Amah is, and who and exactly all of our interactions with Dowd, and what my role has been, so that I understand where I've been and what's expected. And sometimes there are moments where the job just seems overwhelming, and there's so much criticism, and you just say, oh, come on. I'm rolling up a waterfall. This social media is just a beast. It can't be done there. What's the point? And you have those moments, and then you realize, good God, I've been doing this for 5,400 years. I haven't given up yet. Why would I give up now? I think that for me too, the insights that you can glean from the Gadol and Katan Mayor, and how God begins his story by saying, I got a couple of guys.
Yeah.
And they're both great. He says, but one's younger than the other, and one's greater than the other. This is one's going to reflect the nature of the other. That's his job, to reflect his nature, but they're both going to volunteer to serve as signs of the Moedim. Now, that's how we're going to get this done. And he sets them up as the fellows that fulfill the Moedim. And that's the plan he has to keep on track. The rest of it kind of slips, not a big deal. But the Moedim have to be fulfilled at the right time, by the right people, in the right way. And that's why we had to do what we did to save Nasalma man. That's why we had to do what we did to salvage Dowd's relationship with Yahowah. And that's why we had to come back and create the environment around him to support him, to fulfill the Moed Mikra. And that's why we're back again to reintroduce him properly to the world.
For Kapurim, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise it just doesn't happen. Our relationship, we're not together if God didn't do that. None of us are here. And there's really no future for the world. So I think that there's so much writing on this that God didn't leave it to chance. And he doesn't want to overrule us. No, it wouldn't be fair.
I mean, it wouldn't be fair to Yahowah to restrict him so much that it gives him the inability to keep his promises. He's trustworthy and reliable.
Yeah.
And you can't, and he came up with the plan where he literally took his favorite children and weaved them into the story to be at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, he shows that he says he's a quality parent.
Yeah.
So when I came up with this the first time, you were immediately, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
He's going to keep his word.
Yeah. In fact, I think you were even there when I figured out how it worked, because I was so frustrated because I couldn't understand the way this worked with time.
Yeah, well, this summer we kind of been bouncing back and forth. It's like, why does it always appear that it's kind of the same characters show up at the right place at the right time, and everything works out?
But you can't go back in time. So, then you you start with Chinook and Adam. Then you're not going back in time. You're just reinserting people in the right places in the timeline with whatever they need to know to get the job done.
Which is a great reason that Yahowah plays favorites. Because he knows who he can trust and rely on, even if they don't understand it themselves at the time, and they work their way into it.
Yeah. What Kevin just said really just sums up in a very brilliant way why Yah wouldn't pick a putz like Paul to do what he did, or an Akiva, or a Muhammad. It just doesn't work like that. It just justifies all the work that you've done.
No, you've got to stay on script. That's the key. You've got to stay on script. If you're reading the Torah and prophets, even if you wrote some of it, you've got to stay on the script. If you're not committed to go where the words go and to recognize Yahweh is consistent, he does not change. He has a very methodical approach to how he wants things done, and you're to reflect that approach. Then things go well. And if you want to color outside the lines, they don't go well. I mean, you just can't color outside the lines if you're going to do this job.
Yeah. I'll give you an example also, one of the most that I still find head turning, but it makes all the sense in the world, is when you figured out and put forth the opinion and theory about Shem and Dowd, and the whole issue about what being anti-Shemitic is, and the way Yah views him, not just him, but his son. So, and just the way history is played out about what being anti-Shemitic is and what has transpired.
Yeah, think about how far Dowd fell. And he fell way before the Bathsheba incident. He and God were not talking. And it actually transpired. It may have been, the incident that may have triggered it is when Dowd got all mad at God for killing the fellow that tried to interfere with the picture God was painting of how the bull was going to pull the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem. And he interfered, and God killed him and for ruining the story. And Dowd had a conniption fit, and that may have been the triggering event. But from that point on, until Dowd starts writing his Psalms again, Yahweh and Dowd were not on speaking basis. And Dowd on that the 51st Mizmowr, he really sinks to a low. And that letter that he wrote to get Uriah killed is one really despicable piece of work. And yet Yahweh continued to love his son. He knew he wasn't talking to him. He was disappointed in him, but he continued to love him through it and gave him the support that he needed to get back where he needed to be. And I just think that's so exemplary of who he is and why we don't have to fret what we're being asked to do. God's expecting us to have moments where we slip up. Dowd did, and he didn't give up on Dowd. What he did, he didn't forgive Dowd, and he didn't give up on Dowd. And he didn't pretend like it didn't happen. He figured out a way to solve the problem. And he couldn't solve the problem through Nathan. He heard Nathan, but he didn't respond to him. He needed to send somebody in that he'd have to listen to. And the only person that Dowd would actually listen to is the person who would do what Dowd was being asked to do. The closest thing that Dowd had to an equal in terms of the sacrifices that he would make along the way. So when I look at it from that perspective, what I see is a father that knows exactly how to resolve these kinds of issues, and he did it in a way that worked out for everyone.
What better way to think? I would do for my son. I'll go to hell and back for him.
Yes, exactly. That without breaking away from who he is, he didn't have to compromise at any time who he is to resolve his son's issues. And then when they were together, he continued to support him. He just never put Dowd back in a position. Dowd was never again back in a position where he didn't have support, because Ethan Hajj Rocky in that role did not abandon Dowd after delivering the 89th Mizmowr. He was absolutely there with him, and that's why Solomon knew him so well. No, he did not abandon him, and that's why he didn't send him back alone. This is the most passionate of men, but sometimes when we are both fully emotional and fully astute mentally, that there can be conflicts and you go off the rails. And so he just precluded that from happening by keeping him properly protected. We were kind of Leah and I were sort of the enclosure of Eden for him, a little bit of bliss, a little bit of home again for him. And one of the things I loved about that story too is that there was no way that Paul could have had the argument with who he called Peter, who was Shimon, and the argument with Jacob and the argument with Yahowah, which he calls them so-called disciples. If there were not those men that were close to and supportive of Dowd as the actual Messiah, if there were not men like that, with Jacob being identified even as his brother, if there were not men like that, then there's no way that Paul could have had that argument, and you wouldn't see it in his letters. And so this explanation of them being Dowd's brothers during this time is, and the support that he had from his mother all the way through. The Christian myth didn't come out of nothing. It's a counterfeit. It's not an original story. And this is the first time I've ever conceived something that explained what they stole, what they counterfeited. You ever think that through, Mike, and what the advantages are of that?
Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Well, I hadn't really thought about that exactly.
Okay, it's an interesting thought, because there had to be an actual Jacob and a Yahowah and a Shimon that were very close to and protective of Dowd for Paul in 52 CE to go to war with him. In the first letter, he condemns both Shimon and also Jacob, and in a later letter he condemns Yahowah, and they wouldn't be known. There wouldn't be no argument against them unless there was somebody that was close to him, knew him, supported him.
That's
and
true.
Somebody had to be there for the beginning of the Ebonites, the Ebonim, recording what he said, particularly in the two speeches that are so hostile to Christianity that are only available in Matthew because he plagiarized the Ebonites. Somebody had to be there to record those.
So yet you found another way to implicate Paul and his dastardly lies, because Shaul Paul, as they say in Tel Aviv, he's full of chara. He's full of crap.
Yeah. All right. Well, the time we have left while we're doing this, I'm going to see we do have, Perry does have a microphone on. So Perry, you were here during that whole discovery period. You had arrived just prior to us coming to that conclusion. And, you pretty much keep your emotions inside. Sometimes your expressions don't say what's inside, but when you arrived and you heard that, we have evidence that we've been here before. What was your thought?
Well, I look at things the opposite way JB does. I look at the big picture and I say,
certain things have to be for that story to be there. So when you started bringing up all these details and all that, the story started to make sense. And it was like, now the big picture makes sense because I'm starting to see all the little details. And they're coming hot and heavy, and the story's becoming rock solid.
Yeah, I think the story gels. And what I think he's meaning by JB is different is that you and I have a tendency to develop the story from the details. We're looking at letter from letter, word for word, stem, conjugation. We're building it by the basic foundational blocks, and we build it up by translating it and then trying to understand it. My view has never been big picture down. It has always been the details that create all the pieces of this portrait, getting them all in the right place, getting them all framed. But it's always doing the right thing with each individual piece. And I think you're a little like me in that, and that I love to see the whole picture come together. And I think I see it now, this for the first time, all of these pieces in the proper order over time, even in a 4-dimensional realm of space and time. But I think you and I did it from the details up as opposed to the massive view down.
Yeah, macro.
Yes.
Yeah, we're piecing the puzzle.
I appreciate that macro. I remember when I first came into the covenant, rather than go down the road of translating, I realized I had to capture this whole narrative. I had to understand Yahweh's point of view. So I attacked just the body of work, and in that you pick up all the details. But I guess I probably would be a little bit more like Perry. Like I take a macro view first, and then maybe go into the details after. But there's certainly wisdom in building it from with the foundation, with the information.
I think ultimately you need both. I feel like I have a foot in both camps now. I'm about half my time the micro and half my time the macro. Sure. I still get my biggest charge now is when a detail helps to put the another piece of the puzzle or portrait in the right spot, and you have it perfectly shaded in the right vantage point. I still love it when the little details emerge and you find something that's delicious. That's my treat. But understanding the big picture of this last 6,000 years and what the next 1,000 years is going to bring and how we're going to get from here to there. You want to be big picture and be able to verify it through the details.
When you combine the micro with the macro, Yada, you become the maestro.
all true. All right, let me. We've got to share a little bit about the 89th Mizmowr. I'm going to read through a few statements of it, and then we can comment on it as we conclude this program. And I would love to have the sign off be the Shepherdess of Days, because that was such a marvelous way of communicating. Sometimes when I hear those songs, Kevin, my reaction is, what in the world am I doing? Maybe I should just shut up and let my wife sing. And then I realized that she got the lyrics of all these songs because of what I was translating and sharing and learning is where she gets all the lyrics for the songs. So I thought I'd have to keep my day job regardless. One of the things what I learned too is that recently we tried to outsource the writing of that timeline, and I realized that I'm not going to be unemployed anytime soon. So so sometimes it works out just fine. You want to make sure you have some value going forward. I'm kind of an old guy, 5,400 years old. I want to make sure I still have some way I can contribute. And
it is Yada. It is Yada Yahowah. It is not Dr. Jeff Yahowah. It is not JB Yahowah. It's not Kevin Yahowah. It's Yada Yahowah.
Yeah, it is. By the way, I am just so glad we've got Yahweh's name on the website and in the header, and it's not fussy. It's swordish because it kind of expresses his mood at the moment. And I am so thrilled to have my name off of the header and down there in the footer where it belongs. And it's. So we are still Yada Yahowah on the books, but the website, it's Yahowah. We know our place here. Now, you guys' view, by the way, would be just the opposite. Our view is everything's about him. His view is everything's about us.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's amazing that God is responsible for all that we've achieved, and He's set us up to be successful, and yet He wants to give us all the credit.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, He's happy to give us the credit. Wants to. In fact, if you try to say, "No, I don't want the credit for that," He says, "Come on, don't run it for me. This is fun." Anyway, it says, "What man of strength and character, who is confirmed and empowered to prevail, continues to live while restoring life, and will not witness a continuance of death as a result of the plague." So that one's pretty obvious, right? I mean, it's at this point, we've got Ethan Hajraki is writing again. Yahowah, he provided the introduction. Yahowah just did a crescendo. There you go. He's my son. He's my guy. He's my chosen one. He enabled the covenant. So I literally cut the covenant with him, and I'm his father. He's my son. So he started off with a bang, and then Ethan explained his role with Dowd going forward. That he's the guy that ultimately takes out Rahab, so that Dowd can return in his full glory, to earn some credibility with Dowd, so he could share this message. But then Yahowah is just all over Dowd. Just says Dowd is the one. He is everything in this story, everything. And then Yahowah goes to, "You dastardly people, what in the world are you robbing my son for? There's just nothing that irritates me more than you robbing my son." And then it closes with Ethan Hajraki jumping back in and kind of giving us a summary. So he's now saying, okay, now we've heard from God on this. What man of strength? What man of character? A Gabor. And Gabor is the Hebrew word for strong man. It's the basis of Gabor and Gaborah and Gabriel. That's the same word. So what man of strength and character? God's already called, by the way, in this very psalm, his Gabor. But what man of strength and character, who is confirmed and empowered to prevail, continues to live while restoring life. That means that when he would, has now, but would then sacrifice himself, his body, as the Passover lamb, it didn't cost him his life. He didn't die. The body was sacrificed. Dowd didn't die. This myth of Jesus, he died for your sins. Well, no, he didn't. Well, first of all, there's no Jesus, but the person who fulfilled Passover did not die. The body died. And it's so essential to refute Christianity. And it's so essential also to understand this deployment of souls and how they go forward in the story. So he continues to live. And he's the one that restores life. And that he will not witness a continuance of death. Death will happen to the body, but not to the soul. He delivers, now speaking of Yahweh, he, as in Yahweh, delivers his soul, rescuing and saving his persona, his consciousness, from the hand and the indulgence of Sheol or Shaul. So it is Yahweh who would and now has made certain that Dowd was brought out of Sheol, and more importantly, he rescued Dowd's reputation from Shaul. A brilliant use of the word that can be conveyed either way in this circumstance. He delivers his soul, rescuing and saving his soul, his persona, from the hand and influence of Shaul. Pause now and consider what this implies. God, if we'd only had Jews 2,000 years ago who thought about that.
Yeah, right.
Or even today, Christians that would think about it.
Yeah.
Now, this notion that Dowd is, David is, dead and buried, he's in his grave. That's the opposite of what's being written here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason that Paul never quotes the 89th Mizmowr, I can tell you. It absolutely destroys his whole get up and get along. There's nothing left when you know it. And he goes on to say, where is your unwavering love and enduring favoritism, which was expressed first and foremost, formally from the very beginning, my upright one and Lord, which you promised to Dowd. Your unwavering love that you promised to Dowd, your favoritism that you promised to Dowd, in harmony with your steadfast commitment to being trustworthy and reliable. Psalm 89:49, very clear that this begins by saying that Yahowah is loving and adoring and devoted to Dowd, and that he is honorable and can be relied upon pursuant to Dowd. And now it's concluding by saying, if you're going to write Dowd out of the story, then who is the recipient of your love and of your trustworthiness? And there's part of this too that just tickled me fancy, because I played the card, God is not a Lord, he is a father, and which is true, he is a father. But there are times when Dowd refers to Yahowah as my Lord. There's times when Isaiah does it. There's times when Moshe does it. And here, if I'm right about co-authoring this, I just did it. And you have to come to grips with, is there an appropriate time to use that kind of a term with Yahowah? Now, you would write Edom the same way, which would be my upright pillar. It's a little awkward to say the upright pillar of and my foundation. But what I came to realize when we saw Leah, as in the mother of Israel, of Yehudah anyway, refer to herself as Asher. And then the 31st Mashal, where Dowd is expressing that his mother, this M, who birth mother he hated, so this is a very different person, is Asher, and she's the greatest among women, and that she is rather extraordinary in this regard. And so she's referred to as Ashar, and her husband, in the most favorable light, is referred to as Baal. And then you go back and you read that Yahowah tells Israel, I was Baal to you, in a very positive sense. I mean, I was your husband, is what he's saying. I was your husband. And so you realize that in the right context, it's particularly for the time. Like if you go back 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it was very customary for us as young people to refer to an older person as yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Right? So we did. It was a sign of just respect. And Lord would be a sign of respect in the sense of that's how the term was used. Kings were called lords, and Yahowah, he, so long as you know his role is to be a father and he is our God, and that he has a name, Yahowah, that's what they did. Occasionally there would be a Lord, and you realize that when God used Baal, speaking of himself in his relationship as a husband in the covenant relationship with Israel, that the term isn't all bad. There's husband is a good, positive connotation. And here, upright one and Lord is meant, whether it's Edom or Adon, it's meant respectfully. And so then you get to the realization that while Baal is used as a false god as well, and Satan is acting like a lord, isn't it a corruption of an otherwise good term?
That's Satan's modus operandi.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that many Hebrew words have a dark and light side, and they play off each other quite well as with a dark and light side. Mm-hmm. So, you can't work around every time that someone like Yeshaya or Dowd or Moshe, here now Ethan Hajraki, uses the term. And I don't think they all meant the term in the very complex way of you're the foundation and upright pillar of the tabernacle.
Don't you think it's the same? The difference would be that a lot of people would say Lord and Master like a slave relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's
what
bad.
Bad.
Yeah, but saying at the time, Adon was very much like calling somebody sir. Yes, sir. I find myself occasionally when I'm talking with when I'm going to engage in a conversation, I'd say yes, sir. It's more just like I get it, and okay, I respect your position on this. I accept it. That's where we're going to go. It's like a private talking to a general. It's yes, sir. I understand what you've just asked. It's almost a way of saying I acknowledge what our relationship and what you've just asked. Anyway, I just think it's interesting, and it's one of those things where I'm quite certain that I went to too much of an extreme, where I recognize that Satan does want to lord over us and has coveted the term to become the Lord God of religion, but that Baal isn't always negative.
They didn't have a right to change Yahweh's name and call it and scratch it out and put Lord in his place. That's
bad. That's really bad. And then pretending that that there is a God named Baal, mm-hmm. And that you are speaking for a God named Baal. That's really bad.
Yes.
And like Yahowah, I think it is, or Yirmiyah, I think it's in the 23rd chapter, and there's a whole dissertation about replacing Yahweh's name with Baal. And that's a bad thing to do. That is absolutely a wrong thing to do, but it isn't a wrong thing to do to refer to Yahweh as the Baal husband of the covenant with Yisrael, because he says he is.
Context is everything here. Context is everything.
Context is everything.
It's interesting, Jeff, that you say that because, in context, I'm comfortable, I think, with my upright one pillar and foundation when we think of what the 89th Psalm is communicating and the grandeur and the splendor of that Psalm. To use words like upright one pillar foundation, they do seem to go. No?
Yeah, they do.
I am as well. I agree with you, Will. It's just what Hasatan does. He corrupts everything. Even like I brought up the Canaanite god El.
Yes. Yeah. See, he calls himself El, which is God's title. So there's almost everything is corrupted. Asherah is the mother of God, the Queen of Heaven, and yet Leah, and conceiving again, says that she is Asher. She is blessed and beneficial among women. Yeah, meaning it in a very positive way. And one of the 12 tribes is Asher, and Asher is used by God as an adjective, as a preposition, as a noun, as a proper noun, as a verb throughout the Torah and prophets. And, he's not speaking of a pagan goddess when he's using the term. Right. So it's context, and you can twist something that is good and make it bad. And you can take something that's bad and twist it to make it good. And the goal is to render the truth accurately and fairly, and recognize that words are tools that communicate meaning, and in the right context a word like Baal can be positive. A word like Asher is usually positive, but it's corrupted when it becomes a goddess and a religion.
Yep. And all you end up doing is changing words, corrupting them to create Babel.
Yes. Yeah, Babel isn't confusing on its own. The basis of Babel confounding is based upon intermixing truth and lies. So it's like taking the dark and light side of something and creating a sense of confusion over taking a positive term and making it sound like a negative term. Or, of course, it's mostly taking something that's a seed of truth, like Christianity. There are many elements of Christianity that are counterfeits, and they're counterfeits of that which were true, but they become false when they speak of a counterfeit individual. You're taking the truth and you're counterfeiting it. And so Babel is the method of confusion by intermixing truth and lies, and sometimes a word can have both in the same word, like Baal, like Asher. Lots of words where that's the case.
There are no bad words, and I think my favorite has always been Yisrael, because Yisrael, they engage and endure with God, or they struggle against God.
Right.
So
Yisrael.
Yes. Perfect word to describe that. Is Israel a dirty word? Yes. When it's Israel acting as they did most of the time during the Exodus, they were striving and struggling against God. And yet the term is something that God is endeared to. He's reconciling his relationship with Yisrael, which means ultimately Israel is those who engage and endure with God. And there's lots of Hebrew words like that, but Israel is a perfect example. And so here again, this is saying that God made a promise, a Shabbat, to Dowd. And that promise was in harmony with God's commitment to being honest, to being reliable, which means if you replace Dowd with someone like Jesus or Bar Kokhba, you're calling God a liar. And there's really no other way to get around that. So as we move, I think there's only 3 more statements. Skipping through all of the commentary here. But as we move to the conclusion, this says, my upright one again, my Lord, you have chosen to remember the most memorable of men, mentioning that you are mindful of your sons. And this is Zakar. You recall and never forget to proclaim the account of the young men. It is the call imperative, second person, masculine, singular here. And there is a really interesting word, I think, in Hebrew. You like to look things up, Mike. But Zakar as a noun means young man. And Zakar as a verb means to remember. And most nouns are defined by their actionable root. So when he uses Zakar, and particularly Zakaron, which would be all things pertaining to Zakar, I think we're always wiser, fairer, more honorable, more true to the text if we can combine the actionable root into a noun and not just leave it hanging out as a verb or a noun without the other parts of its character.
On Facebook, I try to put all the, the main word, and then all the, like if it's a compound word, I try to put the, all the two words that make up the compound word.
You're the best at compound words, and particularly in the really tough ones where the prefix is tough to figure out. But you're also really good at at where, Strong's may say, this is the root, and you say, I don't think so, because there's another word, a verb that's spelled exactly like this, with the exact spelling as opposed to two of the three letters, and it takes you in a slightly different direction that I've always thought is interesting, and you've done a really marvelous job all the way through with the books of saying, yeah, that's what it says, but maybe you want to think about this, because it leads in a slightly different direction that is usually better.
Tehillah is one of those.
Yes.
One of the words is usually translated as pray.
Yes. Yeah, but that's not what it means.
No.
It's part of it's either to intervene and act as a mediary to resolve a problem, and then there's what's the second aspect of it? Recall?
I think it's based on Palah, PLH.
Yes, and I agree with you.
If you look at Strong's, it says it's based on PLL, which is to
Yes.
intervene.
Right, and PLH is what's the definition of it?
That's like to be set apart.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
And then the T part of it, without my notes, I can't tell you the word.
Yeah, no, I know. But the difference was to be special, to be set apart, to be uncommon, and even if you're to blend the two together, to be distinguished by your interaction that resolves some kind of an issue collectively. That is such a powerful concept, and when you define it with the blend of those things, it always fits the sentence better than unsupported pray.
The T part, I don't remember the word. I can look it up. I mean, I've got it.
Yes.
But it can either mean like you have a desire to do it, or you're abhorred by it. So it has the positive and negative meanings, like a lot of Hebrew words have a light and a dark side.
Yes. Have you, my favorite compound words are the ones that begin with an interrogatory, taking Kara and making it Mikra, for example, taking so many Hebrew words that are like that, mitzvah, from combining the word for instruct and direct with to ponder the implications of it. Those are my favorite compound words, because I have had not, like mishvat is another one, where you're taking shafat and you're putting a prefix on it to ponder the implications of. When I came up with that, I was unaware of anyone who had written a lexicon or a dictionary to point out what I thought was a fairly obvious combination of the interrogatory with a very common Hebrew word. When you've studied your words, have you found anybody else that has done that?
No, that was a great insight, with the M being from Ma, which is to question the who, what, why, when, where, how.
Mm-hmm. And it makes things like Mikra versus Kara. We know the root of it is Kara, but why did they put the either M-A-H or M-Y? Why did they put the interrogatory to it? Because the thing that separates Mikra from Kara is us pondering the implications of these invitations to be called out and meet. And that's where we come to know and understand.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's so many words that are like that, and many, many, many Hebrew words are compounds of common words. Ish, Sarah, El is such a great example. Ish being the Hebrew word for individual, and Sarah is Abraham's wife. But the name can mean to endure, to engage, but also to struggle and wrestle, and El being begad. But many of these words are marvelous studies in what they mean. And when you take them apart as the compound word, then you've got something. One of my favorites is, and I've never heard anybody do an analysis on this either, but there are about 10 Hebrew words that have the suffix on at the end of it. Shabbaton is, of course, the most famous of them, but so is Elion is another example of this. When Yahowah is introducing Dowd, he uses Adam, and it's followed by on. And there, Zacharon is another of these, where it's all things pertaining to whatever the word was that preceded it. All things pertaining to the influence of God, Elion. All things pertaining to the purpose of the Shabbat and Shabbaton. These are Zacharon, all things pertaining to the most memorable of men. I
so
think
on the own, on the own, I'm assuming you're spelling it Aleph Wa Nun, right? That one.
It
has to be that one, right?
Yeah, it's pronounced. I mean, the own sound comes from. There is no supply for the O other than the Wa, so it's a Wa Nun that creates the conclusion of it. So we write it OWN as the Wa Nun, and the Wa would be the symbol of water, of course, and excuse me, not water, but the tent peg, and the so it's the tent peg plus a child or a sign of birth. So water is the source of life, and this is a sperm and a seed taking root and growing. So those would be the two letters. Like I always thought that even trying to understand the words from their component pictograph letters was an interesting study.
Well, Kirk did a great job on that. That was awesome.
Yeah, and Kirk was the first.
Coming from Mike, that's great.
Yeah, Kirk was also the first to recognize that some of the word could go from. If you wanted to have a general rule that if there were one of the four letters, there's just three letters with one repeated. But if one of those letters that comprises Yahowah's name, the Yod, the He, and the Waw, were in a word, and if the other letters in the word were leaning towards it or looking towards it as you wrote them right to left, the word was usually positive. And if they were leaning away from it, then the word was usually negative. And most Hebrew letters lean from right to left. So it would be a word that would begin with a letter in Yahowah's name and then end with another letters that were not in his name. Then they would typically be looking away from the letters in Yahowah's name, and they would usually be negative. And if they looked the other way towards the letters in Yahowah's name, they were typically positive.
Even a goy could come up and look at Yahowah, and you'd be all right.
Yeah, you could. It's an open hand reaching down and out to us. Two people standing up with the two hands reaching up to their father in a very loving kind of embrace, paying attention there. Awareness of him standing up, walking, not bowing down, and reaching up to that hand, and those two individuals are connected by the tent peg, which enlarges and secures what would have been the family home at that time. Well, to enlarge it and secure the family home through these two people that are looking up, reaching up to God, and his hand reaching down to us. Yeah, you're saying so. The way it was written, you could figure it out, particularly if you're an artist.
Just to conclude for the audience that's listening, it took me about 20 seconds to look up Zachari. It does say young male child.
Yeah, yes.
Three places to find it, but there it was. Sure.
Yeah, there it is. Zachari is a young man, and Zachar as a verb is to remember. Yeah. And since there's very few Hebrew words where the verbal root in Zachar and Zachar are written exactly the same in Hebrew. There's no distinguishing between the two of them. It's unconscionable based upon all that we have studied, where you wouldn't combine the verbal actionable meaning into the noun, which becomes a memorable man.
Yeah.
And it changes your understanding in a lot of places where you realize who the most memorable men are in God's story and why they're memorable.
It really does.
Yeah. So then this says, my upright one and Lord, you have chosen to remember the most memorable of men, mentioning that you are mindful of your son. Those who work with you are dishonored and disrespected. They're insulted while taunted, held in contempt while slandered and abused. Boy, isn't that ever true? I mean, you look at the history of those people who have worked with Yahowah and conveyed his message to a person. They're all chewed up by everybody and their presence. It is probably the most thankless job ever, toughest damn job ever. And it says in a demonstrative and intense manner, lift me up and bear through me, forgiving by carrying away in me with my body all the many people and the great family. So here is Ethan Haas Rocky saying, yeah, this tough damn job. And look what happened to Dowd and how he was disrespected and would be disrespected. And so that, all those who work with you, universally, no exceptions, they're dishonored. If you're popular, it's for darn sure you're not working with God. Everybody loves you. You're an influencer with millions of followers. You can rest assured you aren't speaking for God.
So Benny Graham didn't read this one.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, this is it, man. If and Ethan,
you got
knows,
a big crowd in Coliseum. This ain't you. You're in the wrong job.
You're in the wrong job. So Ethan knows he's done it before. He'll do it again. Those who work with you are dishonored. They're disrespected. They're insulted. They're taunted. They're held in contempt. They're slandered, and they are abused. And that is the way it is. And the more you learn about Yahowah, and the more you go where His words lead, like that's why I was pushing this most difficult understanding of how God can redeploy and chooses to redeploy His favorite souls, because it sets this job up to being exactly that, taunted and insulted and mocked and all of that sort of thing. That's exactly what they're going to do with that kind of information. But it's our job to go where the words lead, and that's what the words say. And so he's saying in a demonstrative and an intense manner, now lift me up, bear through me. This is a tough job, but together we can make this go. I can make this work. I can even provide forgiveness and a collaboration with you. If you're demonstrative in your enablement and your support and pronouncements regarding me, we can carry away the religious guilt. We'll make this happen, he's saying. And doing so with my body, which is precisely what Ethan would do. He is the man from Edom. He is the Adam of Paran. He knows it. He has made that really clear, even in this Mizmowr. He knows who he is, and he knows that he has a job to do, and that job does not end with getting Dowd back on track in his relationship with Yahowah. That's just the most important step along the way. And he recognizes that so long as it's with his body, no big deal. Happy to dispose of that. All the many people and the great family. So he wants to have forgiveness provided through his body, no matter how difficult the job is. And he says, this is because those in opposition to you, Yahowah, they are confusing. They are unable to think. They cannot convey thoughts properly, and thus they're insulting with their belligerent and bewildering derision and improperly discerned contempt. They're there to discredit. They're there to abuse. inaccurately and irrationally, portraying, thereby defiantly insulting, creating myths regarding the very footsteps, the stance, even the recompense and reward as treacherous foes of Jacob, to deceive because of your Messiah.
Wow.
To have 8951 say that at the end of it. So there's Ethan's. Now he's writing the concluding prose. This was a collaboration. And he is talking about the cost of all of this, and particularly of misrepresenting Dowd as the Messiah, and how many people are going to say awful things. And he even knows that he is going to be one of those who's discredited because of what he has to say about the Messiah. And it would turn out to be exactly true. And that he would know that ultimately he was going to sacrifice his body to restore the reputation of the Messiah and solve the problem of the people so that they could be there when the Messiah returns. And this is really detailed prophetic that you're never going to see unless you know who the players are. But this is one of the great advantages now of knowing who Ethan Harsrocky is. He can make this claim in first person. I'm going to give up my body for forgiveness, even though this is the toughest job in the world. And part of the reason this is so tough is that, particularly among Jews, but among everyone, they've all focused on discrediting, taking away from Dowd to create religious myths, whether it's Muhammad or Bar Kokhba or Jesus. And so the toughest job in the world is to say Bar Kokhba, Muhammad, and Jesus are not messiahs, are not speaking for God. They're all false. It's all about Dowd. And so you're going against the religion of the Jews and the two most popular religions in the history of the world. And you know you're ultimately going to make a difference by sacrificing your body. And it's going to be because the world has stolen Dowd's attributes and accomplishments. Now, I'm not saying that there are even 1% of the world's population that are going to understand that. But we can. Benefit by being greeted. This is his salutation to this most important song ever written. He says, benefit by being greeted, by being commended and blessed by Yahowah, having knelt down in love to lift up. That's what he's done for all of us. We didn't lift him up. He lifted us up. From antiquity into futurity and forevermore. This is trustworthy. This is verifiable. This is reliable. I'll sign this in blood with my own, because I know who Dowd is. I know who Yahowah is. I love them both. And I'll take the stripes. We're saying that Dowd is the Messiah, the Son of God and Savior. So Jesus never existed. Muhammad's a complete fraud. Judaism, beginning with Bar Kokhba as a Messiah, is a crime against God's people. Dowd is the one. Leaves you speechless, doesn't it? And it's even more, it's just I say that this might, to saying, as it relates to coming back and another life to fulfill this last promise. It is what makes this statement poignant. Or you can say, I'm going to give up my body. I will do this. I will do what is necessary to enable the recompense to be paid so that we can resolve this problem of your family betraying you and your beloved son, the Messiah. We'll get this done. I understand the problem. I'm committed to resolving it. And I know that job does not end here in 1000 BCE. We'll be doing this again. Not once more, not twice more, 3 times more. And so even in the conclusion of this song, it begins really as it ends. That while co-authoring this song with Yahowah 3,000 years ago was probably the most important thing I've done in my long existence, I wasn't working for myself. I wasn't the end of this story. I was just playing a role and reflecting the son's eventual brilliance, and that all of this was for Dowd, because all of Dowd is for us. That's what it says, is that the commitment here is to help God with his beloved son, because that's the only way that God can help us. It gets right to the core of it. And so the young man that Katan Mayor, his job is to do what I'm certain that Chinook did 5,400 years ago. And what did he do 5,400 years ago? There's only one way that Chinook could have come to know Yahowah and earned Yahowah's trust so that Yahowah would take him. Only one thing. There's only one possibility. You can run every scenario through your head, but there's only one. And that is the last 300 years of Adam's life, they coexisted together. And that was a very small community back then of Nasama men. And he knew Adam, who was Dowd. And he's the one person that went and says, I want to hear your story. I want to hear all about what happened between you and God. What was he like? What did you guys do? What did you enjoy in that relationship? And yeah, I know it's got to be tough now. You've made a bad mistake and you threw it away. And you know something? We're going to make this right. You're going to have a chance to prove yourself. But learning about Yahowah from him, it's the only way he ever could have learned about Yahowah. And then supporting, as much as God loves Dowd, his beloved son, supporting Dowd, the way it had to happen. So that's how I read this, is that we didn't go back in time, but we were there at this time. And that I knew by the way this thing is introduced and the way that it concludes, that the reason I could do at this time what Nathan could not, and what Yahowah could not. Yahowah couldn't talk to him directly. And Nathan couldn't get his attention. Is that Yahowah knew if he inserted me here as the guy that would ultimately be there with Dowd on Pesach and Matzah, and then give up my physical body to reconcile Yisrael to Dowd when he returns and restore Dowd's credibility and take the stripes for that, that I had skin in the game and I could get his attention. I could say, listen, I know who you are. And now you need to know who I am, because together we're going to make this work. And this is why we're going to make it work. And this is how it's going to turn out in the end. That's how it happened. So that's my take on it. I've been doing this a long time, a quarter of a century. And that's where God has taken my understanding. And I don't think I've ever been more comfortable with this realization. It went from being frightening to me because of the vulnerability of it, the very thing here, you're going to be slandered and taunted over it, to total and complete comfort. Mm-hmm. Because you're now prepared to handle it, and you know that you've been through it before. It worked out fine then.
Young man, it may be a quarter century now, but young man, it's really 5,400 years, sir.
Yes, it is. We've been doing this for a long time. And with each passing day, I realize more and more and more of what we have done in the past. And that this is not bragging by any stretch of the imagination, because it's strictly a support role. I'm nothing but really a projection of Yahweh's love for his son and for his people. And he just found a person that had the mental acumen that would be able to understand the picture, and had the tenacity that he was never going to give up. And he had a kind of personality of super judgy, so that he would go through the material and render conclusions quickly, and that would remain resolutely rational. I think, Mike, that's one of the things you've seen in the writing from the beginning. We came up with a standard operating procedure, how we were going to do this. We've never detoured from that in any way. It's the exact same systematic approach every time. And that consistency and that willingness to know that being wrong is not so bad, because it gives you the opportunity to demonstrate you're trustworthy by saying, okay, yeah, let's fix that. Let's make that right. Let's learn from it. And let's grow as a result of it, and earn people's trust, because there's not many people that can admit when they're wrong, are there?
Okay.
Pretty rare. That's what brought JB and I together. So we have a different relationship, JB and I, and you and I, Mike, and that you and I began by you telling me I was wrong, and JB and I began by me telling him I was wrong. And by him being an agnostic and him finding somebody who was talking about studying God and was willing to admit that he was wrong and correct it, he says, that's somebody I can trust. That's really rare amongst people. And in your case, our relationship began by you telling me I was wrong, and I said, oh yeah, you got a good point there. I was wrong. Let's make the correction.
Well,
and being thrilled to have the opportunity to make the correction rather than bemoaning it. Every time that I learned something where I was wrong. In fact, I would say that you were the person, and I hope we can do this program together when we come to it. You're the person who turned a portion of my world upside down. I had made a mistake, and I was calling Shabuwah a barley harvest. And the reason I was calling Shabuwah a barley harvest is Yahweh constantly says that Shabuwah is a result of Teruah. That Shabuwah really is a Bokurim harvest. But Bokurim is absolutely a barley harvest, and Shabuwah is absolutely a wheat harvest. And the timing of year and everything else proved that. But the terms that he uses for standing grain is such that it is a completely different concept than Bokurim, which is the grain is still growing, it's green, it's receptive, and barley is sickled very early in the process before it's matured, and it dries in the field, where if you did that with wheat, it would rot. And so wheat is standing grain that is ready to be harvested, and it's still it's reached its pinnacle in terms of what it's going to be able to do. And you were saying I was writing something. He says, no, you got that wrong. It's here, and here's the proof. It's a wheat harvest. He said, by the way, you've covered this correctly and in the past. You're just not recalling which you've written yourself. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks, and I said, oh my God, I've got to go reread all of this. I have still one last legacy of what I grew up under, which is, you grow up in a society that is so dominated by Christian mythology that the harvest is trumpets, and that Shabuwah was observed back in 33 CE. So it must have been Dowd that fulfilled it. And that's so ingrained in the culture that I grew up in. And you're the one, you said, no, I think you need to look this through. And I dropped everything. I don't know if you recall the moment, but I dropped everything. And I said, I think what I need to do is I need to do exactly what you told me. I don't know if you recall this, but what you said is, you're right in what you have said. What you have actually written about this is correct, but what you're saying right here is inconsistent with what you have written. And so I read it all. I went back, and every reference to anything remotely like this, I read it from beginning to end. And it immediately, I said, absolutely. I was right in the middle of rewriting also questioning Paul as Twistianity. And I had gone from trying to justify Shimon, Kephesh, Peter, and just say, well, he was wrong about this and wrong about that, but maybe this was his intent, and to a point where I said, I don't think that Shimon, Kephesh said any of this. I think it was all put in his mouth by Luke on behalf of Paul, and all of it's wrong. And so I came at the same moment I was writing about how Shabuwah absolutely was not fulfilled as it's described in Acts 2. Did not happen in 33 CE. Complete and utter lie. And at the same time, you're telling me that you've correctly presented Shabuwah as a wheat harvest, but you need to understand what the difference between those two are and the time of year and what this all means, because that wheat harvest hadn't happened yet. And then we got our act together, and then 2 days ago, so I'll give you another little teaser. I'm reading about the instructions as to when we are supposed to delineate what can be known, to begin to pronounce the proper accounting for the first time regarding Shabuwah. And I'm told, that I'm not to begin that proper accounting of Shabuwah and when it's to transpire and what it represents until I'm disparaged and slandered. And when I endure being disparaged and slandered, that's the time.
When was that?
Exact same time. Exactly the same time you and I had that discussion, Mike. And that set everything up so that now the entire picture and the entire story plays out correctly. And now we have a full appreciation that Teruah is really, that is the great day of Yahowah, is Teruah. And it's the greatest story ever told. Just to tell the story of Teruah is 2 hours worth of conversation just to go over the highlights of Teruah. But Shabuwah, it's going to be 8 programs to go over Shabuwah, and it's marvelous in its own way. And it was that discussion, fact checking from you. Wow. That's why it's so important that Yahowah puts the right people in place, because you can't do this on your own.
It's amazing. Like I say to Mike and JB, it's the first time I've ever heard where you have 2 wrongs making you more right.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Which is what happened, and that's literally what happened. And don't forget, you have another job, because ultimately you are going to be meting out as the rod of divine justice.
Yeah, it is true, but it's all over the place that is the case. And part of it, I've been conditioned so that I think I'm capable of doing that. I mean, I wouldn't ever want to go into it on my own. I'll have very strict instructions. I'll follow those instructions, and we have the Malak enabling the process. But I think I'm finally tough enough and that takes toughness. That I'd be willing to see it through to get it done. But this is why you can't do this job, particularly at this time, alone, and why Shabuwah has those spectacular 8 individuals that, and Shabuwah would be a much bigger harvest, of course, than 8 individuals, but it has 8 individuals that what God actually says is that when this all transpires, you're going to celebrate. You're going to be absolutely ecstatic in Yahowah's presence among these 8 individuals. And he says that that's in the place of his choosing, and the inference is, so are the people. And those people are essential to what we're going to accomplish over the next 3.5 years when we're redeployed, and then over the 1,000 years after that, that we have a guarantee of employment, and we're going to work together, and there are, leaders to get this done. And so I owe Mike not just the debt of being an excellent fact checker and keeping the books correct. And you write 25,000 pages, and that becomes really essential, particularly when you're making so many conclusions. No one's ever made so many conclusions about God, so it's nice to have a fact checker. It gives you a level of confidence too. But that particular email or note from you was probably the most important that I received, certainly in the last 5 years, and maybe the most important ever. So that's how it works.
You've been melodied.
No debt. It's been fun the whole time.
It has been. Oh, it has been, man. And it's it just it's the best job in the world. And in fact, the fact that it's hard, and the fact that you get a lot of grief by doing it, that endures. It endures you to Yahowah. So you're having this sense that when we're done with this job, we are all going to get the group hug. And you guys are saying, I'm really, really pleased with what you guys did. You stuck it out. You saw it through. Look at the stuff you figured out that no one had ever figured out before. Look at all this stuff. I mean, just amazing. And I don't think he's going to rub it in and say, you missed 99% of what was really there. Congratulations on the 1%.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
No, I mean, that'll be the following day. But the first group hug is going to be, you've got 10,000 things here that no one ever figured out before, and you did it. Now, the fact that I helped you along and I brought together the right team, and we're really very comfortable. You look at like that website now, and all of the what is there, and how a team had to come together to make that happen. That is such just a marvelous expression.
It's a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
I view that's God's library for the next 1,000 years, and we will continue to improve it. And it's just so much fun to be out here now, exposed, and to be able to do these extemporaneous programs, and to ask honest questions. Because I'm sure that everyone who's listening to us.
I just hope that Yada. I hope that Yada has the opportunity to have fun that he deserves, eradicating the Hufi print and Al-Aqsa on the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of references to Go Boom Hufi print. In fact, we're going to have one of them we're going to talk about in Shabuwah. There's a Go Boom Hufi print. And we've already had this conversation with Yah. I said, I'm allergic to that kind of stuff. I'm happy to do what you want me to do, but I know you're open to negotiation, and I think I'm asking you to do something that you're already committed to doing. But let's just make sure we're on the same wavelength here. I show up there, that building's gone. And if we're going to hang on the Temple Mount, let's have the tent of the restoring witness, and then let's saw the whole thing. I even saw the great bonfire. That bonfire is going to burn for a long time. That is something really, really special to Yahowah. And there's so many wonderful details of that story that are woven into it. I've now pictured the coming back where we're all, because we're eternal beings at that point, that we're all in kind of a semicircle, if you will, behind Yahowah and Dowd, because they're the focus, coming back, and here's God coming back, and God saying, no, it's my son. Pay attention to my son. He's my son. And so you have Dowd being the center of attention. Even coming back with God, Dowd is the center of attention. And we're there as support. He's our God. He's God's son. He's our king. We're here to support, and we're here to applaud, and we're here to enjoy, and we're here to cry, and we're here to sing joyously. But that's what we're going to do. Even the soul of the Adamah Parah gets to come back as part of that group. It's going to be marvelous, man. So we have gone our hours. Thank you, Mike, for joining us and for enduring all of this. Sorry to put you on the spot with some of those questions, but I think it's interesting for people to have a unscripted Q&A on things that are challenging. And, we're here to be honest and open, and people can tell that if you're genuine or not. That's the advantage of turning on the lights and opening that lens of the camera and doing a live stream, which is every one of our programs. There's not a single edit to any program ever. It's that they get to see if you're genuine or not. You really know this material, or you're convinced it's true because of the way that you present it, and that we're able to do and get honest responses. So, Mike, thank you. JB, my good friend. Thank you. Oh, wow.
Who's that?
Wow. What a pretty one that one is.
Our dog.
Wow.
Susie says Shabbat Shalom.
I would love to show you Wookie or Kara. Wow.
They're all sleeping now.
I think Wookie and Kara are, Asher's the only one that's up at the moment.
Carrie
Wookie and Kara are sound asleep. Dr. Jeff, it was nice to get you relaxed and home and not in the hospital. It's the first time in a number of different programs. Always wonderful. Cam Kirk, we're going to get you healthy, man. You still have a great smile, and your color looks great. You look like the Captain Kirk I've always known and love. I'm ice and pills. I just want you to feel better and stronger. And Jake, I can see Jake behind you. And Shabbat Shalom, Jake. Thank you for loaning us your father during this program. Sometime you'll have to sit right next to him, and we'll have both of you mic'd up and on camera, and you can participate too. Thank you for the wonderful song that you did on my behalf too. I really enjoy it. And so
thank you.
Yeah, it was marvelously done. And Kevin, it's you skipped out on the midsection. We could have had 6 hours in today.
Right?
You only gave 5, but my understanding is that
I was still working.
You were still working. You were working for Leah during the intermediate hour. That's a lot to do. I'm thrilled, and I talk to everybody here constantly about how grateful I am, and we are, to have you as part of our family and your contributions. You are really become the glue that holds the whole thing together. And
just helping out. Yep.
Exceedingly appreciative.
And Yada, you do express that in a conversation with another covenant member today. We were saying that it just is very satisfying how Yada and Leah really will, give you your strokes and really show their appreciation for what you're doing. And so we appreciate that.
Well, thank you. It's genuine. And I have here Rich over to my right. Rich has become essentially my brother. We do everything together virtually, and
he never leaves the house.
No, he hardly ever leaves the house. Perry is also becoming a fixture and such a contributor here. But had this not happened, I mean, talk about two people just transforming their lives to be of support, to help us share Yah's messaging and to get it out in the time that we have. And it just the selflessness of it all and the quality of the contribution. It's with Yahowah, it's all about attitude and aptitude. He actually seeks out both. It's not just having the right attitude, but it's having the right aptitudes as well. And Rich is exemplary of that.
Somebody had to come down here and help.
Yeah,
and I see the stress that it puts on you guys as a family.
It does. I mean, this is This is a 14-hour-a-day job, 7 days a week, and it is it's in the frying pan most of the time. There's a lot.
I gotta say that Rich has that wonderful, marvelous Elia charm.
He does. It even looks like Elia. I'm expecting Elia to, in fact, for what I can tell, Rich might even be Elia. Who knows? But he really has the whole role of.
Well, we don't like people, so we got that in common.
This is true. And Perry has been our man on scene regarding taming our AI and going through our glossary, even getting the new superscript on the words accurate, so that we show which are ain and enough. It's the first time it's ever been done, but it's already permeating all of our books, and we're working together to train our AI and to make certain that we're being responsible in this regard, because lots of things are twisted and used against us, and that's not the intent. But we also have many benefits, and hopefully within the next couple of days we're going to have the community up. And I've just had 1 day of experimenting with it and communicating with family members.
You weren't supposed to be experimenting with it.
I know, but I found it, and I was having a great time with it, and it is just marvelous. It is open messaging where everybody can contribute to any theme, any post, and then it's also private messaging. So we've made our website the place to go. You don't have to hang on Facebook to instant message there. You can instant message anybody just on the website.
Wow.
There you go. And let's give Joe Page a shout out. He's the bomb.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I am so pleased to have had Joe Page be part of my life for 30 some odd years. A man of just exemplary character. But Joe is the epitome of attitude and aptitude. He has just mind-boggling proficiency in his ability to code and to do the kinds of things we want, with a keen eye for how things are going to look, and with just exemplary character. He's kind of the ideal Yahowah soul, and he's also a bit of a rogue. He's kind of the ideal person that Yahowah likes to work with, and it's so appealing to me to know that we'll be able to work together collaboratively on Yahowah's digital library and digital footprint for the next 1,000 years. So that's a relationship that means a lot to me and a lot to us. And as it turned out, just so how things develop, Joe's been here now a couple of 3 times, and he and Leah have become exceedingly close. I think that he talks to Leah even more than you do, Kevin, and probably more than I get to talk to her. They're on the phone all the time working on things, and they have just this marvelous, close, productive relationship. But it's multi-layered. It's a very caring and supportive, mutually supportive relationship. It's kind of ideal, as you would expect in a covenant family. Of people. You have that same relationship with her, and you do as well, Rich. You're developing it as well, Perry. It's that, and Jeff, you're on the phone with Leah all the time too, and it's her exceedingly well, and the rough edges and the brilliant glow, and it's, I think, exactly as Yahowah would have intended for us to get together as brothers and sisters.
Very Ruthful.
Yeah, very Ruthful. Let's play the song on our way out, and we'll finish our program just with that beautiful song, if you wouldn't mind serving it up one more time. Shabbat shalom to everyone. Thank you for all contributing. Thank you for being a newbie on the show. Yep, and there we go. Pretty.
blue veins wraps around the staff of her days. She's walked the path of joy and pain, learned Yahowah's way, not man's charade. No longer lifting millstones with her hands, she guides their steps through roughened land. With Dowd's lamp at her feet, she walks ahead, a daughter of Zion by Yahowah led. Through every trial, through every tear, his covenant promise holds her near. The rod and staff, they soothe her fear. She hears his voice within her ear. Shepherdess of days, yeah, shepherdess of days, guarding younger souls along the narrow way. Not in faith or fear, but in knowing him by name. Yahowah's truth burning like a flame. Shepherdess of days, walking in is the way. Calling out, come home, leave religion's haze. In the Mikuray's light where the family stays, she takes her stand. Shepherdess of days. Her delicate hands like maps of care, each line a story Yah has shared. From Pesach's door to Matzah's bread, from Bikurim life to Shabuwah spread. She counts the days till Yah's return, where Dowd will reign and nations learn. She calls out in Yahweh's true name, strips off the masks of man-made shame. Not church, no mosque, not rabbi's rule, but Torah's voice, the only school. In Yehuda's song sung in Dowd's refrains, Yisrael will delight like a cat. She leads them out of Babel's chain. Shepherdess of days, Yahweh, shepherdess of days, guarding younger souls along the narrow way. Not in faith or fear, but in knowing him by name. Yahowah's light burning like a flame. Shepherdess of days, walking in his Torah ways, calling out, come home, leave religion's haze. In Mikuray's flame where the family stays, she stands, his shepherdess of In the voice of the moonlit breeze, she hears Yahowah through the tree. My daughter, caught out, invite them home out of Mitzrayim. Take my hand, we'll walk these days. I'll wipe away inherited fears. The covenant stands, it never decays. Beloved daughter of Zion. Sing unto Yahowah, desolate woman, she who has never panted in labor, she who has no child of her own. Sing clearly and joyfully, for you will become a mother. In family tents beneath the stars, she points and speaks of scars of how the Lamb opened the door, that Yahweh's children live forevermore. She traced the song for open sky, the scripted promise for Yah's reply. In every step, her staff and song call wandering souls where they belong. Shepherdess of days, yeah, shepherdess of days, guarding younger souls along the narrow way. Not in faith or fear, but in knowing him by name. Yahowah's Amah burning like a flame. Shepherdess of days, walking in his
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. That was Fetch. Gotta run now. Catch y'all on our next podcast.